Chapter 830. Formation Dao Masters were the easiest to deal with. Before the formation was completed, they had almost no power to fight their enemies. Even if these Formation Dao Masters embarked on the path of cultivation, most of them cultivated neutral and peaceful techniques or techniques that were specially created to support formations. Very few of them had any means to directly fight their enemies. For this reason, they had sacrificed countless lives before things like formation discs could be researched. At the same time, Formation Dao Masters were also the most difficult to deal with. Their methods were so grand that it was impossible to rely on manpower to complete them. Most of them relied on setting up formations that borrowed the power of heaven and earth. As long as the formation was not destroyed, even if the Formation Dao Master died, the formation would still be able to operate on its own. Some powerful formations did not even need Formation Dao Masters to redraw the formation patterns or change the objects used to suppress the formation core. They could automatically absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to maintain the operation of the formation. If it was an ordinary Formation Dao Master, Lin Yuan could still try to set up a trap and lure them out of their lair before killing them with thunderous means. However, this kind of existence that could inscribe formation discs was not an existence that could be dealt with by changing the location. As long as they wanted to, after taking out all kinds of formation discs, it would not be a problem to turn the vast starry sky into a great formation that sealed the heavens and the earth. Lin Yuan instantly recalled the reward he had received after completing the first stage of the mission. So these heavenly axioms were all stingy? Bah, the behavior of a scumbag. In terms of difficulty, this mission of enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens was probably not inferior to the mission of dealing with the outer god in the northern frontier. Black Jiao, if you have any last words, say them quickly. The son of the fisherman seemed to have accomplished something incredible and was suddenly confident of victory. Lin Yuan's gaze turned slightly and landed on the sword in the son of the fisherman's hand. He said in a deep voice, "You have revealed too many flaws. As an assassin, you talk so much nonsense. Isn't it just to stall for time so that your sword can accumulate power so that you can slash out with an extremely powerful sword? Do you really think you have the chance to slash out with this sword?" From a certain point of view, the sword in the hands of the fisherman was indeed a divine weapon for assassins. It could accumulate sword momentum on its own and multiply the power of the next attack. Had it not been for the fact that it closely resembled the saber-nurturing technique, Lin Yuan would have been wrong about it. Even though it could not be like Lin Yuan's saber-nurturing skill, which could endlessly increase the power of qi and blood, it was probably a sword forge master who wanted to protect his work so that the sword, which he had painstakingly created, would not turn into trash after being unsheathed once. Moreover, the meaning of this sword perfectly fit the profound meaning of the assassin's path: if you don't hit, run 1,000 miles away. To put it bluntly, the might of this strike had already greatly surpassed the strength of the son of the fisherman. In the end, this strike had failed to kill Lin Yuan. As such, the son of the fisherman should have retreated in the face of difficulties instead of continuing to stall for time like a scoundrel so that he could gather strength for his next strike. If a weapon like this were to fall into the hands of the son of the fisherman, it would be like a pearl covered in dust, right? If you weren't so arrogant the last time we met and were determined to kill me, I really would not have been able to resist at all. But now, in my eyes, you are no different from an ant. Lin Yuan's eyes narrowed as coldness rippled through his eyes. The invisible ice immediately condensed into icicles, sealing the son of the fisherman within. From afar, it seemed like a crystal coffin had been created for him. The son of the fisherman did not dare to move, as he was surrounded by icicles. If he moved even slightly, he might be killed by the icicles. At the end of the day, he was only at the void realm. It was only because he had a powerful sword that he could kill or heavily injure demon kings in a single strike. The other demons were in awe of him, not daring to clash with him casually. Usually, he only needed to use a single strike to control the situation. As a result, when he met Lin Yuan last time, he had used a single strike as promised, but he never thought that Lin Yuan would actually survive. Afterwards, he directly left and did not use a second strike. It was not because he was arrogant, but because he was afraid that the other demons would see through his weakness. However, when he met someone like Lin Yuan, who had seen through his little tricks and directly exposed him after only meeting him twice, he did not dare to show any temper at all. Tell me. What kind of organization is Heaven's Justice? What kind of person is that Lin Yunzi? Also, tell me about the bounty on my head. If there's even the slightest mistake, I'll take your head. I mean what I say. Lin Yuan swam to the ice coffin and stared at the trapped son of the fisherman. Seeing him open his mouth, Lin Yuan spoke first. There's no need to use the name of Heaven's Justice to scare me. Since I dare to say it, I definitely dare to do it. Compared to the people I have to face, the entire Heaven's Justice can only be ranked in the middle at most. Do you think they'll fight me to the death for a puny void realm cultivator like you? Only when Lin Yuan saw through his thoughts did the son of the fisherman lower his head like he had accepted his fate. His gaze was somewhat bitter. But if I break the rules, will there be a place for me in the world? The son of the fisherman's voice trembled slightly, as if he was undergoing an extremely intense mental struggle. Since Heavenly Justice is a famous organization in the underworld, you won't break the rules even if you don't tell me. Otherwise, you wouldn't have mentioned Heavenly Justice's name from the very beginning. I'm not interrogating you about Heavenly Justice's secrets, and I don't want your Heavenly Justice's martial arts inheritance. I'm just asking you for information about an elder. If you tell me what you know, you'll at most offend that elder, but you won't break the rules. As for those employers who hired you to kill me, I'm never the kind of person who would leave behind a disaster for myself. Those who are my enemies only have two choices. Either they kneel down and work for me, or I kill them all. Those who kneel down only have one chance. Either I die, or their clan is exterminated. Therefore, if they don't have full confidence, they won't do it, and they won't be stupid enough to hire an unknown assassin to do this. Therefore, your employers and those who added the price, I know them better than you do. Lin Yuan's tone was full of ridicule. He lowered his voice and said, So, don't tell me whether I break the rules or not. You only have one chance. Either you tell me what I want to know, or I'll see it with my own eyes. If you want to die, I don't mind. The son of the fisherman's face changed. He suddenly raised his head and looked at Lin Yuan in disbelief. He asked in a trembling voice, You? Who are you after all? How could a black Jiao, who lived in the depths of the endless sea and didn't have the background of the dragon palace of the four seas, know so many secrets? Yes. He was an existence that even the dragon palace of the four seas had to hire people to deal with. How could he be simple? Therefore, you're really not suitable to be an assassin. You don't even know the identity of the other party. You just came here as if there's nothing in the world that you can't kill, and there's nothing that you don't dare to kill. Lin Yuan sighed softly. Chapter 831. The fisherman's son was like a frosted eggplant, listlessly spilling everything he knew. The people who hired Heaven's Justice League assassins were indeed at the bottom of the Dao initiation realm among the Heavenly Gate Guardians, and their numbers were not small. The bounty on Heaven's Justice League's head was not a lot, but it was definitely not a small amount. At the very least, it was a third of the resources they had absorbed from the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce. Excluding the fact that they could not use all of their resources to buy Lin Yuan's death, they also had to consider the various resources they had consumed. To put it bluntly, there were at least 10 people involved in this bounty, which was almost the total number of Dao initiation realm cultivators in the Xinwu dynasty. However, this was also within expectations. After all, Lin Yuan's attitude was so arrogant before, even if they were not present, they would not obediently give up on the profits brought by the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce, let alone give up the territory where their forces flourished. Therefore, joining forces against Lin Yuan, who they did not know where his confidence came from, was undoubtedly a normal thing. Even those who did not want to fight to the death with Lin Yuan had to make a statement on this matter, lest they suffer a loss. However, these people did not dare to act personally, and only dared to hire a force like Heaven's Justice League. This proved that they were indeed afraid of the demon court behind Lin Yuan. Moreover, They had never thought that Heaven's Justice League, whose upper limit was the Void Realm, would be able to send someone who could really kill Lin Yuan. At this moment, they just wanted to use this matter to warn Lin Yuan. Putting aside these matters, what really interested Lin Yuan was the information about Ling Yunzi. This Grand Elder of Heaven's Justice League's Array Path Peak was said to be a down-and-out Array Path Master in his early years. He spent a lot of effort to become a disciple of Heaven's Justice League, earning money by any means necessary to buy various materials and books to study Array Path. He went into closed-door cultivation 30 years ago, and only officially came out 5 years ago. As soon as he came out, he set up a powerful array that crushed other Array Path Masters, and sat on the position of Grand Elder of Array Path Peak. Even the Sect Master of Heaven's Justice League had to be courteous to him. However, the strange thing was that Ling Yunzi, who had such high attainments in Array Path, had never pointed out anyone's Array Path in front of others. Even if his disciples came to him with questions, he would decline them as much as he could. Only when he met those who were generous, would he ask them to leave the question and come back the next day for answers. After all, the profession of Array Path Master burned too much money, much more than ordinary cultivators. For example, spirit stones were a necessary resource for cultivators. However, it was different from the novels in Lin Yuan's previous world. The spirit stones in Tianwu world could store various kinds of energy, but they could not be absorbed or refined. They could only be carried around to increase the speed of gathering spiritual qi. The Array Path Master's spirit gathering array was to place many spirit stones together to set up the array, increasing the speed and quantity of spiritual qi gathering. However, even the most basic spirit gathering array required close to 5,000 spirit stones. Each spirit stone was worth tens of thousands of gold, and there was no market for it. The rest of the arrays also required a lot of spirit stones, and these spirit stones were only the basic materials. Some of the materials used in the arrays were enough to make even god tycoons feel despair. Therefore, Array Path Masters could not teach each other without risking anything. They had to prepare the corresponding materials or spirit stones. Combined with the information given by the will of the world, Lin Yuan quickly connected the dots. This Ling Yunzi probably did not have any talent in Array Path. Even if he had closed himself up for 30 years, he was still at the same level as before. He had just become a disciple of Heaven's Path, so how could he give pointers to other Heaven's Path Masters? If he really had that kind of ability, and coveted the other party's reward, he would not use such a small trick. The only reason he could answer the other party's questions on the spot and make them come back the next day was because he could contact the Array Path Master who could really answer these questions. In the 30 years of closed cultivation, what did he experience, or what did he do? First of all, it could be ruled out that Ling Yunzi was a chess piece supported by some Array Path Master. It was because not all Array Path Masters had bad tempers, but to be able to reach this stage, other than the necessary talent, it was also because they were constantly studying Array Path. Just like what Edison said, a genius was 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If Ling Yunzi was just a chess piece, the person behind him would not be so easy to talk to. He had single-handedly supported him, and was even able to answer all of Ling Yunzi's questions. He even completely complied with the time Ling Yunzi had promised him. It was as if this Array Path Master had been so bored that his balls hurt, and was just waiting for Ling Yunzi to contact him. There was nothing shameful about Array Path Masters, especially those who could draw array discs. If they were able to develop a powerful Array Path Master, even a true god would be able to face them head-on or even win. Such an existence was almost at the top of the food chain. Even if they were burdened with heinous crimes, no one would dare to say anything if they showed up openly. It was because the law of the jungle was the main theme of this world. If the other party had such ability, why did he have to support Ling Yunzi to be this camouflage while he hid behind the scenes? Did he have an ulterior motive, or, interesting? Forget it. What's more important is that I get to work. Anyway, I'll meet him sooner or later. Looking at the Yu family's son who was gradually getting farther and farther away, Lin Yuan lowered his eyes. With a change of mind, Lin Yuan's figure had already moved. As the Yu family's son had already put away the array discs before leaving, they did not have to continue taking detours. After about 7 days, Lin Yuan, who was traveling at full speed, finally arrived at the front line of the battlefield. This was because he had borrowed the other party's transmission formation when he was passing by the sea. Otherwise, he would not have been able to get here in 7 days. This is the place where the battle with the aberrant is taking place. Tai Mu, who was standing beside Lin Yuan, was slightly stunned. He looked at the ramparts made of willow stones in shock, as well as the obscure inscriptions engraved on the ramparts that made him feel inexplicable palpitations. Moreover, after entering the fortress, it was as if he had stepped into a gravitational field. Even if he used all his strength, he could not resist the water. He could only stand on the path of willow stones on the bottom of the sea and stare at the incomparably tall fortress in front of him. The walls of the fortress were full of demonic beasts of various races patrolling back and forth. The overall atmosphere was incomparably heavy. As far as the eye could see, it seemed that there was not even one whispering to each other. Around the fortress, there were teams of knights coming and going like the wind. They were riding huge, swift sea demons. They carried teams of soldiers and patrolled the front line as if to prevent the aberrant from bypassing the defensive line and attacking the rear. Chapter 832. You're Lin Yuan, right? Thank you for your support, but we still have to do official business. Before entering the fortress, you have to do a mental test to make sure that you haven't been contaminated by the aberrations. Only then can we allow you to enter the fortress. Also, every time you leave the fortress and come back, you have to do a mental test. A sea snake demon swam in front of Lin Yuan. As it spoke, it kept flicking its tongue, giving off an extremely impolite feeling. However, Lin Yuan could observe through the eye of the god that every time the sea snake demon opened its mouth, it would inject some transparent poison into the seawater around it to form an invisible net. Once Lin Yuan had the intention to hurt someone, he had to first pass through the net and resist the attack of the other party's poison. Overly cautious? I'm afraid not. The only lesson that history had taught humans was that humans did not learn any lessons from history. If they had really learned it, then they must have suffered repeated beatings and had no choice but to temper this habit into instinct. Just like in Japan in his previous life, there were always people who came to seek revenge and said that they were disturbing. They would draw their swords and kill the other party when they lowered their heads to return the greeting. Then, they would have to smile and say that they were rude. Of course, this kind of behavior also allowed Japanese swordsmanship to develop rapidly, giving birth to countless swordsmanship that was suitable for fighting enemies in narrow rooms. There's no need. I'm not entering the fortress. I'm here to clean up the aberrations. Just give me a map of the nearby area. Lin Yuan shook his head. A mental test was indeed a method, but it might not be very effective. In the fortress in front of him, there were probably many aberrations who were still in disguise. From the beginning, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas did not know what they were dealing with. They only thought that the other party had the means to contaminate the minds of living beings and assimilate them into monsters. However, Lin Yuan was very clear that these old rulers were intelligent, and their level of intelligence was definitely not low. After all, the rulers of the old rulers were almost all the most outstanding people of an era. I'm afraid that's not appropriate. The clown sea serpent twisted its body and said in a deep voice, the aberrant is extremely terrifying. Any action against the aberrant requires the approval of the higher-ups, and then the corresponding personnel will be sent to carry it out. It has happened many times before because the clown sea serpent went to the battlefield without knowing the details of the aberrant. As a result, it caused us huge trouble, so, if you don't provoke the mutants, they won't come looking for trouble with you. Lin Yuan's heterochromatic eyes turned slightly, and he said in a deep voice, give me a map of the surrounding area, and I'll do the rest myself. You have no right to tell me what to do, understand? The Dragon Palace of the Four Seas seemed to be used to being domineering. Even though they could not withstand the attacks of the Great Old Ones, they still put on airs in front of the sea monsters who came to help. They were not even willing to share information, and simply ordered these sea monsters to work for them. However, this kind of bad habit definitely wouldn't work on Lin Yuan. If he wanted to spoil the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, he would not have flipped the table when he came to the Endless Sea. Yes. The sea serpent seemed to still want to refuse Lin Yuan, but it seemed to have received a message from someone. After gritting its teeth, it lowered its head and agreed. Its figure flashed, and a moment later, it took out a gray stone and handed it to Lin Yuan. A strange picture was engraved on the stone. If one looked carefully, one could see that the content was a map of the nearby area, and it was newly drawn. With the fortress as the center, it included the battlefield in front and the safer rear. Some particularly dangerous places were also marked. Obviously, it was the internal map of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. If it were other demon beasts who went out to carry out a mission, they would at most be assigned an old map. Most of the roads might not be able to be traversed, let alone whether the dangerous areas would be specially marked. After glancing at the map and memorizing the general content, Lin Yuan continued to hurry on with Tai Zun, but he was thinking silently in his heart. The cultivation of level 8 of the desolate demon realm was not outstanding in the Endless Sea. After all, a tribe like the brave crab tribe could gather 3 demon kings. If it were forces like the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas and the Sea Demon Guild, they would definitely be able to take out a few hundred demon kings. Therefore, the strength of an individual could not affect the situation in this war at all. The opponent was not a mortal or a beast without cultivation. In the remaining 83 days, Lin Yuan would definitely not be able to severely injure the old rulers with his own strength. Unless, it would be best if he could incite chaos and force the old ones to fight to the death with the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas and the various sea demon clans that came to support them. Several battles would break out one after another, and it could even lead to a decisive battle. Now, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas and the various sea demon clans did not come out and only dared to fight near the Willowstone Fortress. If he wanted to start a war, he could only hurt the old rulers and force them to take the initiative to find trouble. Moreover, it had to be the kind that would not retreat until the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was taught a big lesson. The first step was to provoke the anger of the old rulers. The second step was to lead this anger to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. The third step was to watch the show from the high platform and wait for an opportunity to complete the mission. Thinking of this, Lin Yuan took a deep breath. The demonic power value on the interface jumped crazily and continuously poured into the eye of the god. The range of detection was also constantly expanding. With himself as the center, he could see the entire battlefield and even the surrounding areas. He began to carefully observe every move of the old rulers. These aberrations could not have no goals and only fight to destroy the world. Even if they were aberrated into monsters, they were still flesh and blood. Since they were flesh and blood, they needed to eat and rest. I have to give them a good beating. Lin Yuan's eyes flashed with a cold light, and he muttered in his heart. He quickly brought Tai Mu to a place not far from the fortress, but definitely not close either. Only then did he let out a sigh of relief. Most of the areas within the fortress attack range were watched by countless pairs of eyes. However, outside the range of the fortress, even an existence as strong as the ancestral Gragon did not dare to open his perception at will. This was because he might hear or see some ritual of the old rulers and become uncontrollably aberrated into a monster. Therefore, when he came here, even if those observing him were unwilling, they had to obediently withdraw their gazes. System, is there a way for the people on my side to ignore the spiritual infection of the old rulers? Lin Yuan said in his heart. He had the protection of the system and could ignore the spiritual infection of the old rulers. After all, no matter how powerful those things were, they could not possibly distort the heavenly axiom into a monster, right? However, Tai Mu obviously did not have such treatment. He had to solve this problem first before the plan could officially be implemented. Chapter 833. Lin Yuan, what do you take me for? Doraemon? The system was speechless. The mission deadline was not up yet, and Lin Yuan had entered the Endless Sea after completing the layout in the south. He had even charged into the battlefield where the sea demons and the Great Old Ones were in a stalemate at the beginning of the mission. In the end, he didn't even have a way to deal with the mental infection of the Great Old Ones. Are you kidding me? I thought you were omnipotent. Lin Yuan rolled his eyes and teased, as if he was not surprised by the system's answer. Then I'll teach you a lesson. Cut off the vision and hearing of the demonic beast beside you. Then, throw it directly into the middle of the battlefield. With its strength in the demonic king realm, if it doesn't differentiate between friend and foe, when it dies of exhaustion, it will be able to deal enough damage to the Great Old One. If you find 100 demonic kings, you might be able to complete the mission directly. Lin Yuan. When I sent out a question mark, it wasn't that I had a problem, but that I thought you had a problem. If he could gather 100 demonic kings as a one-time use tool, would he still need to do this kind of mission? Hee hee. Lin Yuan sneered and said, the Great Old Ones are indeed very powerful. They have the ability to distort minds, and even the ancestral dragon can be distorted into a monster. No race can gain any advantage from fighting them head-on. However, the reason why they can be surprised from the long river of history is that their era has passed. Just like those gods who have lost their faith will gradually fade away, when they are completely forgotten or vilified by the world, they will also fade away. At this point, Lin Yuan paused, and there seemed to be a smile in his eyes. Didn't they want to tell the world about the ancient stories? I'll do the opposite. Not only do I want to hear their stories, but I also want to clearly explain why their era has passed and how the new era is better than the old era. I don't believe that doing this won't hurt them. The smile in Lin Yuan's eyes grew wider. The system fell silent. Lin Yuan's train of thought was indeed different. In a world where cultivators and monsters existed, the fist was the only reason. No one would deny that Lin Yuan's series of reforms on the northern frontier were beneficial to the present and would contribute to the future. However, among the 7 great empires, only Lei Qiusheng dared to imitate some of the policies on the northern frontier and implement them. Moreover, they were modified and emasculated versions. Not only would they get half the result with twice the effort, it would also depend on the will of the heavens whether they would be effective in the end. Didn't the emperors of the other dynasties know that these policies would greatly weaken the power of the aristocratic families and sects? Did they not know that these policies would make the country rich while making the people rich? They knew. But they did not dare to do so. This was because these reforms would touch the cake of too many people. Apart from Lei Qiusheng, the founding emperor, no other dynasty with a long history would dare to make such a move. This was because in these countless years, it was not only the imperial family that had accumulated resources. Those aristocratic families and sects could not just sit around and do nothing. If they were angered in the slightest, the entire world would be thrown into chaos. Why did Lei Qiusheng dare to implement the emasculated version of the new laws on the northern frontier? Because he was the founding emperor. Those old aristocratic families and sects, no matter which side they took in the rebellion, would have suffered a great loss. A mere few decades were not enough for them to recuperate and build up strength to their peak state, let alone make any further progress. Why did Lin Yuan dare to implement the new laws on the northern frontier? This was because he had pulled a good tiger skin. The truly powerful factions were afraid of the existence of the demon court and did not dare to fall out with Lin Yuan. As long as they did not touch on their fundamental interests, they could even make concessions again and again. As for those factions that were not strong enough, they were killed by Lin Yuan batch after batch. Only then did they create a northern frontier that as long as Lin Yuan nodded, all the factions had to obediently cooperate. Even if he was creating a new era, Lin Yuan was built on the foundation of martial strength. However, who would have thought that when the remnants of the old era counterattacked, Lin Yuan would take an unconventional approach and not fight them head-on? Speaking of which, although Lin Yuan's actions would hurt the old rulers, they did not have much practical significance. This was because there were always some existences in the world who knew that they were wrong but refused to admit their mistakes. Some people could do this for the sake of their reputation, let alone the old rulers who fought for their own survival. Then, the meaning of this move was, I want to force them to kill me. Once they gather, the beasts of the endless sea will feel that this is useful. The more the old rulers want to kill me, the more the beasts of the endless sea will want to protect me. In this way, I only need to move my mouth and I can set up a high platform to watch the show and wait for the war to start. Lin Yuan took a deep breath, and the smile in his heterochromatic eyes gradually disappeared. Insidious. If the system had a physical body, it would probably suck in a breath of cold air. Even though it had been born since Pan Gu created the world, it had not evolved its own intelligence for long. Most of the time, it was in a muddle-headed state. However, after running around in various worlds to cultivate hosts and coming into contact with all kinds of humans and demons, it could be considered to have extraordinary experience. However, it was the first time it had encountered someone like Lin Yuan. Back in the northern frontier, after a trace of kindness brought about a lot of trouble, it was as if he had become a different person. His thinking and actions had become extremely extreme. His starting point had always been for his own benefit. Even if he knew that his thoughts would cause him to kill, when it was time to make a decision, he would not hesitate at all. Since the northern frontier, he had set up traps and tests time and time again to eliminate the people around him who had different thoughts. After creating a situation where one person's word was law, he only trusted Batu, his loyal subordinate. Although he had left a trump card for the northern frontier, how could he not use it to test whether there were people with hidden ambitions in the northern frontier? When he was in the south, Lin Yuan did not kill many people, but the number of families that he had caused was not small at all. In the future, when the cultivators in the south really defeated the demon sect, it would be the time for the sky demon to go south. At that time, more people would die. However, Lin Yuan did not even blink. He even added fuel to the fire, constantly accelerating the process of the cultivators in the south to destroy the demon sect, as if he was afraid that the sky demon would not be attracted. Now that he had returned to the endless sea, he did not even intend to do anything. He directly provoked a bloody battle between the endless sea's beasts and the old rulers. Using the word terrifying to describe such a person was no longer appropriate. If he wanted to bury the entire martial heaven world for his own goals, then that was a question that didn't even need to be answered. Chapter 834. As a result, countless demonic beasts of the endless sea and the old rulers who were fighting on the battlefield suddenly heard a strange intonation from the other side of the battlefield. It was different from the common language of the sky martial continent. This intonation was even clearer and carried an inexplicable power, as if it was the truth of the world. To be able to comprehend any one of the words, it could be said to be a great fortune for cultivators or demonic beasts. Although the pronunciation and language of the old rulers were also very strange, it was only strange. After listening to it, it would only make people feel uncomfortable, and there was no magic that made people want to study it. If it wasn't for the fact that the old rulers could distort the minds of living beings and continuously inject what they wanted to say into the minds of living beings, any living being that saw them would avoid them like snakes and scorpions. The source of the voice was naturally Lin Yuan. He didn't use the common language of the sky martial world, but the Chinese language of his previous life. Although the forms and pronunciations of many Huaxia languages had changed after the changes of time, it was undeniable that the untainted world had really existed. Those sages and saints who had been immersed in the long river of history had also really existed. Any Chinese character placed in the martial heaven world would cause countless cultivators to try to comprehend it. Some of them might even go berserk. That was because behind each Chinese character was a monstrous literary qi and karmic virtue. It was an important part of civilization. It could even be said that without the appearance of characters, human civilization would have stagnated. Adding on their weak bodies, they would have become food for the various beasts in the great desolate world. There were always some people who said that humans were the favored children of the heavens and were favored by fate, so they became the main characters of the world. But in reality, that was not the case. It wasn't that humans were favored by fate that they became the masters of the heavens and earth, but that humans relied on themselves to defeat various foreign races and become the masters of the heavens and earth. In other words, when all the foreign races were defeated by humans, the heavenly Tao could only favor humans. The heavenly Tao was very fair. It would never target anyone, nor would it favor anyone. Even if the son of fate was born, it was just a big show set up by the heavenly Tao. Humans relied on their own efforts to achieve what they had today. If they attributed everything that humans obtained to the love of fate, they would be overestimating the heavenly Tao and fate. Lin Yuan used the language of his previous life to express his views. It was not without the intention of taking advantage of the situation. After all, Lin Yuan's current foundation was still not enough to deal with these ancient existences. Even the new era he created was inspired by the peace and prosperity of his previous life. However, it did not matter if they shared the same language. Lin Yuan had never planned to communicate with the great old ones from the beginning. What he wanted to do was to have a battle of ideas with these monsters. As long as the world could understand and the world's will could understand, the victor would naturally be decided. Therefore, it did not matter if the great old ones could understand or not. The key was that once the new era represented by Lin Yuan crushed the old era they represented, they would lose part of their power. In the long run, it was even possible for them to disappear. However, Lin Yuan did not have such an opportunity because this was an open and above-board battle of ideas. Even if he did not appear in front of others, he had to be on the battlefield to do so. It was not like he could casually find a place to say a few words to cause a battle of the principles of the world. It was just like a debate that required both sides. Therefore, once the great old ones sensed Lin Yuan's intentions, they would crazily rush to where Lin Yuan was. Since their ideas could not defeat the ideas of the new era, they could only use force to eliminate Lin Yuan, the only person who knew what the new era looked like. What is that sound? A dragon blood demon beast crushed an aberration, then turned its head to look in the direction of Lin Yuan and murmured, "This voice." When it sounded, I seemed to be in a trance, and I couldn't hear the roars of the aberrations. This voice can actually suppress the power of the aberrations and distort our spirit. It's incredible. Pass down the order. Blackwater Dragon King and Lin Yuan are casting spells to suppress the aberrations on one side of the battlefield. Quickly change your strategic target. Killing the aberrations is no longer the first priority. While fighting, move closer to Blackwater Dragon King's area. Remember, do not let any aberrations break through your defense line and directly threaten Blackwater Dragon King. One by one, the demon beasts swimming at an extremely fast speed under the water ran wildly, transmitting the new orders from the higher-ups of the Sea Demon Alliance to the ears of every soldier. These demon beasts of the Endless Sea were not fools. They were very clear about Lin Yuan's current value. If Lin Yuan could suppress the Great Old One's ability to distort their minds and constantly assimilate them, then these aberrations would not be a big deal except for their disgusting appearance and strength. When the two sides fought fairly, the demon beasts of the Endless Sea did not think that they would lose at all. In addition, the words that Lin Yuan spoke were full of brilliant literary and virtuous qi. Every syllable was incomparably mysterious. The demon beasts of the Demon King realm and above all knew that this language was definitely the most precious treasure they could only dream of. If they could obtain this language from Lin Yuan and study it, their future achievements would be limitless. Sure enough, they're coming for me. Lin Yuan, who was observing the battlefield through the eye of the god, twitched his eyelids slightly, but he still continued to speak. Now, the two sides had not really fought yet. The Great Old Ones were only trying to rush in the direction of Lin Yuan. Although they knew that they had to kill Lin Yuan to successfully complete the plan of overturning the new era, they still had not accumulated enough strength. If they lost this ability to assimilate their enemies, they might not be a match for the demon beasts of the Endless Sea. On the other hand, although the demon beasts of the Endless Sea would attack the Great Old Ones, the various sea demon clans and the dragon palaces of the four seas had their own plans in this catastrophe. Just like the chaos calamity, no matter how grand the scene was, it was just for selfish reasons. It was still not enough to start a bloody war. Lin Yuan's thoughts moved slightly, and he felt countless gazes fall on him. He knew that those were the top experts of the Endless Sea, and even the true gods of the Dragon Temple had still come. They knew what Lin Yuan's current actions meant, and they also knew that completely eradicating the Great Old Ones was good for everyone. However, they obviously would not let things develop as Lin Yuan had expected. Simply put, it was still for selfish reasons. Now, the situation in the Endless Sea was strange. Although the dragon palaces of the Four Seas were still strong, in the previous battle with the Great Old Ones, not only did they lose a large number of dragon blood demon beasts loyal to the dragon palaces of the Four Seas, they even lost a true god. Chapter 835. In addition, due to Lin Yuan's series of obstructions, 8 of the experienced Dragon Nine's sons had died, and the evil dragon camp, which was used as a hidden hand, had completely broken off relations with the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, making the already unstable Dragon Palace of the Four Seas even worse. Therefore, this war was very important. If the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas could borrow Lin Yuan's strength to severely weaken the various sea demon clans, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas would still be able to stabilize its position as the overlord of the Endless Sea after this matter. On the other hand, if the power of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas was further depleted, it was really unknown who would be the overlord of the Endless Sea in the end. But the problem was, would everything be fine if they followed the Dragon God Temple's wishes? The Endless Sea stretched for countless miles, giving birth to countless sea demon clans, and also countless ancient gods from the ancient times sleeping here. Their strength might not be as strong as the Dragon God Temple at its peak, but it could not be ignored. If the two sides disagreed, it was inevitable that they would break up. Thinking about the worst, if the sea demon clans were really dissatisfied with the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas riding on their heads and took this opportunity to directly rebel, in the end, they might not even be able to eliminate the Great Old Ones. I was too careless. Lin Yuan muttered softly, his face a little ugly. Although most of what happened at this moment was as he had expected, he did not expect that although the Great Old One was provoked by his ideologies, he was not as furious as he had imagined at the beginning. It seemed that he had other tricks up his sleeve. Therefore, the one being roasted on the fire now was not the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas and the Great Old Ones, but Lin Yuan, the initiator. One had to choose carefully which side to side with, and the concept of neutrality did not exist at all. Could it be? It can't be. Lin Yuan's mind turned, and his momentum weakened a little. Because at that moment, he suddenly realized one thing. The reason why the new era replaced the old era must be because the new era was stronger than the old era. Using the simplest example, in terms of combat power, wasn't the people of the Bronze Age much stronger than the people of the Stone Age? The final outcome of the conflict between the Great Old Ones and himself was inevitable, because Lin Yuan had already seen the answer in his previous life. However, the Great Old One didn't act out of desperation. He only put on an act as if he wasn't worried that Lin Yuan would continue. It was as if, although they were surprised, they weren't surprised. In fact, they weren't worried at all. There could only be one reason for this: the Sea Demon Alliance and the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas behind him must have cooperated with the Great Old Ones. As for whether it was one or a few, it was hard to say. Just like the saying in his previous life, where there were people, there was Jianghu. Even if everyone knew that the Great Old Ones didn't come with good intentions and intended to destroy the entire world, this didn't prevent some people from cooperating with the Great Old Ones to clean up the dissidents. Although he didn't know where this confidence that he would be the final winner came from. To put it bluntly, most of the demon beasts behind him were probably colluding with the Great Old Ones, even if the two sides hadn't met face to face. Just like when Jiao Wuying disguised himself as Zhang Xiao and slandered Lei Qiusheng to protect the weak northern frontier at that time, this kind of dark secret was never absent. In his previous life, there were always people who talked about the bad habits of humans, but that was because the only intelligent creatures in his previous life were humans. In this kind of world, the demon beasts that were not inferior to humans in intelligence were not bad when they did this kind of thing. This was the bad habit of all intelligent creatures. In for a penny, in for a pound? Lin Yuan's eyes slightly trembled, and the speed and tone of his speech increased again. The style had changed from a meditation class to a mobilization meeting. The ideas from his previous life were spat out one by one from Lin Yuan's mouth, such as prosperity, democracy, civilization, harmony, freedom, etc. Lin Yuan didn't hold back at all. Between the lines, there was a resonance between heaven and earth, and a warm and inexplicable aura descended from the sky, directly enveloping Lin Yuan. At the same time, the incense power on the system panel jumped crazily. The speed of increase was faster than any of Lin Yuan's previous transactions. This was the power of merit. Educating all living beings was a great merit. Even if Lin Yuan was stirring up the cold rice of his previous life, these advanced ideas didn't exist in the heaven martial world. Through Lin Yuan's description, it was enough to attract a monstrous amount of merit. To Lin Yuan, the most direct benefit was the crazily increasing incense power. Lin Yuan even felt that if he directly converted the incense power into attribute points to improve himself, he might be able to directly step into the Demon King realm and officially condense a divine body. However, an unseen feeling prevented Lin Yuan from having this crazy idea. Indeed, once he condensed a divine body, ignited the divine fire, and forged the divinity, he didn't dare to say that he could directly compete with Hung Jun, but his martial strength would at least reach the peak of the heaven martial world. Hengduan Mountain Range, Endless Sea, 6 great empires, and Heavenly Gate Guardians would all come together. But the problem was, what was incense power? It is the foundation of divine power. It is a high-level energy that even existences at the level of Tian Dao and Hung Jun have to pay attention to. It is too wasteful to exchange it for attribute points. What's more, Lin Yuan's intuition is frantically reminding him that if he really does this, he will definitely regret it in the future. Gods and mortals seem to only have a difference of one realm, but it could be said that they were two completely different existences. At that realm, would attribute points really be of any use? Shut up! How dare you! Black Jiao, what are you trying to do? Dull thunder's voices exploded in Lin Yuan's sea of consciousness, almost crushing Lin Yuan's mind and stirring his brain into a paste. If that was the case, Lin Yuan would still be able to regain consciousness, but he would also become a muddle-headed idiot. From this, it could be seen how disgusted these big shots who were watching the battle behind the scenes were with Lin Yuan's behavior of wanting to start a bloody battle at all costs. The corners of his mouth, nostrils, and eyes were constantly flowing with golden red blood. Lin Yuan was almost clenching his teeth tightly as he continued to spit out word by word. He had no intention of stopping because of these big shots' anger. At the same time, the old rulers finally panicked. This was because they realized that things weren't as they had expected. The existence that had borrowed the power of the new era to fight with them, the remnants of the old era, didn't stop. Instead, it became even more intense, as if it wanted to use this opportunity to completely reduce them to worthless. Thus, the aberrations at the front line went crazy. They twisted their strange, twisted bodies and rushed toward the area where Lin Yuan was. Chapter 836. The number of ancestral demon realm experts that rushed out of Willowstone Fortress was extremely large, but none of them had truly stepped into the threshold of true God. The few Dragon God Temple experts that had officially stepped into the divine path and started to manage the Four Seas God system did not move. They seemed to be observing and did not care if Lin Yuan would continue this battle of ideals. They also seemed to be secretly afraid of something. However, although these Dragon God Temple experts did not jump out to oppose Lin Yuan, they did not express their stance. In fact, they had already expressed their stance. No matter what, Lin Yuan was still a dragon bloodline demon beast. Even if he did not have a good relationship with the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas, bloodline was a threshold that could not be crossed. Even if the demon beasts could see that Lin Yuan would have great achievements in the Endless Sea in the future, they did not dare to rope in Lin Yuan because no one could be sure that Lin Yuan would not become the Dragon King of a certain dragon palace in the blink of an eye. At this time, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas had a bloodline connection with Lin Yuan. At the same time, they had a blood debt with the Great Old Ones. However, no one came out to stop the ancestral demon beasts of the other races. In a sense, they had once again chosen to stand opposite Lin Yuan. So this is the difficulty of my task. Lin Yuan's gaze was cold as he swept across the ancestral demon beasts that were rushing towards him. He originally thought that it would be very difficult to fight against the Great Old Ones. However, in a flash of inspiration, he used the battle of ideals to confront them. This was equivalent to directly crippling the Great Old One's most powerful means. If he let them fight openly with the Endless Sea's demon beasts, the Endless Sea's demon beasts would definitely have the upper hand. After solving a seemingly difficult yet very simple problem, the real problem appeared in front of Lin Yuan. How should he deal with these ancestral demon beasts? Although Lin Yuan had always been able to fight above his level, there was a difference between gods and mortals. These ancestral demon beasts were already considered demigods. If they accumulated enough Joss flames, it would not be surprising that they could use some god's means. Not to mention that Lin Yuan was promoted by the system and his attribute points were just a standard model. Even if he maxed out his attribute points and entered the blood boil state, he would not be a match for an ancestral demon beast. Kid, I told you to shut up. Didn't you hear me? An extremely ruthless voice sounded. Then, a demon beast with silvery white fur like an ape with a pair of horns on its head. It pushed the ancestral demon beasts in front of it, pushed several ancestral demon beasts in front of it and strode into Lin Yuan's line of ancestral demon beasts. As Lin Yuan looked, he saw that this ape demon beast had a flat nose and a protruding forehead. The fur on its neck was not silvery white, but azure. Lin Yuan's eyes could not help but tremble slightly. Although this demon beast did not introduce itself, its background was probably not simple since it dared to be so arrogant in front of a group of ancestral demon beasts. Moreover, although its appearance was somewhat different from a certain mythical creature in Lin Yuan's memory, some of its characteristics were also abnormally obvious. This fellow probably had the bloodline of Wu Zhiqi, one of the four great spiritual monkeys in the myths of his previous life, the red-bone horseape. It was the bloodline of a demon beast on par with the great sage, heaven's equal, who had left a shadow in the hearts of countless people. Moreover, the red-bone horseape was undoubtedly the best at controlling water among the four great spiritual monkeys. Back when Yu the Great governed the Huai River, there was a rebellion by Wu Zhiqi. Even Yu the Great was helpless against it. In the end, it was only with the help of Yinglong that Wu Zhiqi was captured. However, capturing it was not the end of it. Unable to solve the problem of the Huai River, Yu the Great used an iron chain to lock its neck and pierced its nose with a golden bell to suppress it under Tortoise Mountain. Only then was the flood resolved. A water demon that even Yu the Great had to borrow the strength of the dragon clan to deal with. From the looks of it, at least half of this fellow's bloodline belonged to Wu Zhiqi. Even Lin Yuan could not help but feel that it was a little tricky. After all, he was only a water flood dragon. Compared to the dragon clan in this world, it might be a great bloodline. However, compared to the Yinglong in the untainted world, it was still far from being at the level of Yinglong. Seeing that Lin Yuan did not stop, the demon beast that resembled Wu Zhiqi was furious. It stretched out a claw to grab Lin Yuan. This claw showed a pure golden luster. It grew with the wind, 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet. When it came to Lin Yuan, this claw had already crossed a distance of hundreds of feet. In front of this claw, Lin Yuan was as small as an earthworm. Lin Yuan's scalp tingled, but he still recited the classics from his previous life. His eyes were fixed on the golden claw that could fall at any time. Even though among the four great spiritual monkeys, only the long-armed ape monkey was good at strength, it was not difficult to see that although the four great spiritual monkeys had their own strengths, it was only their talents. In terms of strength, there was not much difference. Although there was a difference between being hit by Wujichi and being hit by the long-armed ape monkey, the difference was not big. This was because this punch could kill. The dragon clan of the Four Seas was still not attacking. Lin Yuan's eyes turned cold. He looked in the direction of the Willow Stone Fortress, his eyes somewhat sinister. Although the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas had made their stance clear, they did not shed all pretense of cordiality. In this situation where the whole world was against Lin Yuan, if they stood out to take the blame for Lin Yuan, they would definitely be able to gain a good impression of Lin Yuan. In the coming war, it was not impossible to persuade Lin Yuan to push the war in the direction of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Lin Yuan originally thought that the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas had this plan in mind. He did not expect that in the end, he had overestimated the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas. To describe them as short-sighted would not be an insult to them at all. These guys did not make a move only because they were afraid of the Demon Court, or the Guardian who had shown his power in the Dragon Palace of the West Sea might protect Lin Yuan. Therefore, they did not want to directly become enemies with Lin Yuan. They made a mistake in information, deceiving the ancestors of the other clans to rush out to find trouble with Lin Yuan. They wanted to see if Lin Yuan still had any trump cards that he had not revealed. If Lin Yuan did not have any trump cards, then it would be best to let Lin Yuan die here. After all, Lin Yuan had gradually revealed his strength in the Endless Sea. Although the other sea demon clans did not know, the Dragon Palace knew very well that Lin Yuan had already rejected their invitation. It was destined that he would not be on the same boat as them. Therefore, it was not a bad thing to eliminate Lin Yuan as soon as possible. As for how to deal with the Great Old Ones, then it was not up to Lin Yuan, the corpse, to worry. Get lost. Lin Yuan growled, and the power of incense on the interface began to slide down. A 30,000-foot-long black dragon phantom appeared and collided with the golden claw. Boom! The black dragon phantom exploded, and the golden claw was lifted up. Chapter 837. Divine Power. He's just in the desolate demon realm. How can he use divine power? Some of the demon ancestors who were watching the battle were startled, their faces full of disbelief. There were also some ancestral demon ancestors whose faces were filled with greed. They said viciously, "It seems that other than that self-contained language, this kid has quite a lot of good stuff on him. Capture him and interrogate him properly. Perhaps we can take another step forward." That's a good idea. Aren't you afraid of being used as a tool? There were also some ancestral demons who understood what was going on who spoke out. As they finished speaking, more and more demon ancestors came to their senses. Black Jiao had a lot of secrets and each of them was related to a great opportunity. For example, didn't the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas summon Lin Yuan for Lin Yuan to purify his own bloodline and transform from a snake into a flood dragon? For other demonic beasts, this method of purifying dragon blood was not important. After all, they did not have the bloodline of the Dragon Clan. However, this method was of the utmost importance to the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas. Although the Dragon Clan's bloodline was getting weaker and weaker, everyone could see that they used to dominate the Endless Sea with the advantage of their bloodline. Now that their bloodline was getting weaker and weaker, their position as the overlord was shaken. If they could get Lin Yuan's method of purifying their bloodline, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas could still be the overlord of the Endless Sea. For the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas, Lin Yuan's other secrets were not as tempting as the method of purifying their bloodline. But what was the result? Lin Yuan did not hand over the method of purifying his bloodline. It seemed that he was unwilling to cooperate with the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Not long after he entered the Dragon Palace of the West Sea, he was locked in the Evil Dragon Pond. Not long after that, the Evil Dragon Pond was destroyed. When Lin Yuan reappeared, he lost 8 of his 9 sons and the last bit of loyalty the Evil Dragon Camp had to the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Now, even the spies in the Evil Dragon Camp were found out by Ao Sifan and eliminated in the most cruel way. If it were them, they would not be able to swallow it. Then, Why did the dragon palace of the four seas, which was more domineering than them, swallow it? This Black Jiao was not only hiding a huge secret and a huge opportunity, but also a terrifying existence. An existence that even the Dragon God Temple was unwilling to face. Was it really something that the demon beasts could deal with? Thinking of this, other than the demonic beast that looked like Wujichi, the other demonic ancestors that had rushed out in an aggressive manner all silently retreated to one side, waiting for the outcome of this battle to be decided. They wanted to see if they should retreat or drink a mouthful of meat soup. However, there were also some timid or cautious demonic ancestors that did not even have the courage to continue staying here. After confirming that this place was difficult to deal with, they actually quietly retreated towards the Willow Stone Fortress. Even the demonic beast that looked like Wujichi had an ugly expression on its face, as if it had just eaten a fly. Although it was a little hot-tempered, it was not a complete brute. At this point, it could naturally see that they had all been used by the dragon clan of the Four Seas. What this little Black Jiao represented was far more terrifying than what it had shown. But now that things had come to this, could it still retreat? As everyone knew, divine power was a one-time consumable. Unlike Gang Qi and demonic power that could be recovered by themselves, this kind of power could be said to be the key to truly taking that step. Even they had to cherish it, and would not use it unless it was absolutely necessary. And Lin Yuan's move just now had probably used up a lot of divine power. It was likely that he already bore a grudge against it. Countless eyes, both overt and covert, fell on him. Lin Yuan's lips curled into a sinister smile. Then, he said meaningfully, "You have been testing me step by step. Isn't it because you want to see how my foundation is? Isn't it because you want to know if there is a guardian of the demon court behind me? Isn't it because you want to eat the secrets on me?" A series of questions were thrown out. Other than a few confused ancestral demons, the faces of the Dragon God Temple darkened. In a corner of the continent, a few true gods who were observing Lin Yuan through magic treasures also looked gloomy and looked at each other. Although they had indeed done some dishonorable things, no one had made the conflict clear. If Lin Yuan acted like this, how could he get along with others in the future? Was he going to fight against the Guardian of the Heavenly Gate and the demons of the Endless Sea, the two top systems of the cultivation world with his own strength? Let me tell you today. *T The Ancient Demon Court. Perhaps it has already disappeared in the long river of history. Even if there are remnants, who knows where they are now hiding and struggling at death's door. This king said that he was the reincarnation of the ancient demon emperor, but he just had too many secrets on him. He pulled out a tiger's skin to scare you. I didn't expect that there would really be fools who would believe him, and there are so many fools. Lin Yuan shook his head and continued speaking slowly. As his voice fell, he did not know how many people were angry. No background? If not, you should have said so earlier. Would we have allowed you to live until today? However, who said that only the ancient demon court can scare you? Lin Yuan's eyes narrowed slightly, and the power of incense on the panel kept jumping. At the same time, a pitch-black crack appeared beside him. Two pale palms slowly reached out and grabbed the black crack. Then, with a heavy tear, the black crack was directly torn into a large black light curtain. It was like an incomparably strong space barrier. In his eyes, it was just a laughable joke. After a while, a young man in a white coat slowly walked out of the light curtain. His face was so pale that it was almost bloodless, and his hair was messy like a chicken's nest. He looked like he had not had a good rest for several days and could suddenly die at any time. However, the field was silent. All the demons stared blankly at the pale young man who had crossed the realm. They were actually unable to sense the cultivation base of the other party. They could only sense the astonishing power that was constantly rising. It was as if the other party could destroy this world with a single thought. What kind of expert was this? A human transcending stage expert, an ancient god among demons. Was he really a match for this pale young man? The pale young man stretched out his hand and yawned. His gaze swept across the faces of the ancestor demons. With a mocking gaze, he muttered, "It's a pity that this world can't allow my true body to descend. Otherwise, I could have obtained a batch of good experimental subjects." At this point, he turned to look at Lin Yuan and said doubtfully, "You are only at the 4th realm, but you can fork out 3 million incense sticks. You are really generous. Amazing, amazing. Among the colleagues I know, you should be the youngest and most promising one." Chapter 838. Get to work. Lin Yuan's forehead was full of black lines, and he angrily roared in a low voice. The 3 million incense power was converted from his merit of spreading the Chinese language in this world. However, Lin Yuan only spread it, he did not create it. The majority of the merit given by the will of the world belonged to Cangjia, and Lin Yuan only ate a small part. If he could spread the language, every time someone studied it, Lin Yuan would be able to get a small amount of merit power. However, the 3 million incense power was not even warm, and he was forced to spend it, which inevitably made Lin Yuan extremely unhappy. Powerful hosts could help each other, but hosts who could activate this function had to have accumulated at least 1 million Joss flames in their hands, which meant that they had already reached the later stage of development. This function allowed hosts to communicate with each other, and it could be considered as a practice for the final battle that could come at any time. Lin Yuan should be the only host who had activated this function before reaching the later stage of development. After all, the merit of creating and spreading the language was too great. If he could convert it into his own strength, he would naturally gain more than lose. But now, after working so hard, he actually ended up as a worker. Moreover, the 3 million incense power in exchange for a host who was willing to help and was really free to descend for 3 minutes. In addition, this world was originally not complete, and could only barely accommodate a true god. If he wanted to go further, he had to wait for the world to be complete, or leave the sky martial world to cross the sea of bitterness, and go to a world that could bear more power. 3 million incense power in exchange for 3 minutes of someone else's clone, this trade, was a loss to his grandmother's home. However, this guy was not in a hurry to make a move after coming down, and instead wanted to chat with Lin Yuan. It was obvious that he wanted to work but did not put in effort. "Kill who?" The white coat was slightly startled, and slowly spread out his hands, and said with a bitter smile, "You asked me to be a fighter, but you should at least give me a target, so I know who to hit, right?" Lin Yuan pulled Tai Ma to his side, and said expressionlessly, "It's up to you, except for me and this crab. You can kill anyone." The man in the white coat licked his lips and disappeared in a flash. When he reappeared, he was holding a head that was still dripping blood. The group of ancestral demon experts looked at each other. Soon after, they simultaneously looked towards the demonic beast that resembled Wujichi. However, they discovered that although its enormous body was still standing on the spot, the head on its neck had already disappeared. Not only had the green fur on its neck been dyed red with blood, even its severed neck was badly mutilated. This kind of injury was obviously not caused by a sharp weapon. In other words, in the blink of an eye, an ancestral demon with a powerful bloodline was beheaded with bare hands? What the hell? Why? Just who was the demonic beast here? The ancestral demon ancestors who had gathered their courage and stayed behind were all shocked and furious. However, none of them dared to stand out and face the white-robed man head-on, fearing that they would be the next unlucky one to have their head chopped off. The speed of the ancestral demon ancestors was very fast, at least 3 times faster than when they came here. Lin Yuan even suspected that if they had burst out with such speed from the beginning, he might not have been able to spend 3 million incense power to summon his colleagues. Unfortunately, no matter how swift their speed was, it was completely meaningless before this man in white coat who was swift like a ghost and extremely ruthless in his attacks. Every single breath of time, 1 to 3 ancestral demon realm experts would be beheaded, torn apart, and crushed. These ancestral demon ancestors who ran rampant in the endless sea and could even wrestle with the dragon palace of the 4 seas when they joined forces were rapidly losing members under the white-robed man's pursuit. In fact, because their speed was too fast, they quickly caught up with some demonic beasts who wanted to sneak back to the Willow Stone region. These demonic beasts who had sensed that something was wrong at the beginning and wanted to sneak away were unable to escape in the end. They also joined the group that was being pursued. This is, an ancestral dragon who was guarding the Willow Stone fortress felt that his breathing had stopped. One person was chasing a group of ancestral demon ancestors and massacring them. Was this reasonable? This was not reasonable. However, this scene was indeed happening in front of him. Although there were many ancestral demon ancestors who had gathered in the Willow Stone fortress, this was the accumulation of demonic beasts who had reproduced in the Endless Sea for countless years. If not for this, even if the Endless Sea had a geographical advantage, it would not necessarily have an easier time than the Hengduan mountain range. Although the various forces did not get along well with one another, and their hatred was even greater than the other, they had a tacit understanding to only let the younger generation fight. They never dared to involve existences above the Demon King realm. Only when the guardians of the heavenly gates came knocking, or when the old dominators appeared, which was enough to shake the foundations of the entire Endless Sea, would these ancestral demons and ancient gods appear one after another to deal with the troubles that the younger generation could not resolve. Every time the person that Lin Yuan summoned attacked, not only did he kill ancestral demon experts, but he also killed the foundation of the entire Endless Sea. Although the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas' position as the overlord of the Endless Sea was stabilized, it was disadvantageous for the overall situation. A few people from the Dragon Temple wanted to stop him, but after silently looking at each other, no one said anything. Apart from the 4 ancestral dragons, the other 2 dragon gods of the Dragon God Temple were just putting it nicely, but in essence, they were only at the ancestral demon realm. Moreover, even the 4 ancestral dragons had never really stepped through that door. Just like the transcendence among the guardians of the heavenly gate, they were only separated from the ancestral demon realm and the sovereign realm by a large realm. They were stronger and had a longer lifespan, but they were not real gods. If their faith was broken, they would not be far from death. In essence, they were more similar to the protector Een god that the human empires worshipped with the fate of the nation. This was not their problem, but this world was not complete to begin with. Reaching the threshold of the true God was already the limit. If they wanted to improve further, they could only leave this world, or find a way to make this world complete. However, although they were strong, the difference in their realms was not big. The man in the white coat could kill those ancestral demons like chopping melons and vegetables. If it were them, they might not be able to withstand the second move. Even until now, they did not understand how the man in the white coat attacked. Those ancestral demons did not seem to have the slightest intention to resist. They just kept running and were one-sidedly killed. Without fighting, they naturally could not see the depth of the man in the white coat. Someone is spying on us. Just as the killing was going on, the man in the white coat suddenly raised his head and looked at the sea above. Immediately, he stretched out his right hand and gently pointed. Chapter 839. Following the white coat's light tap. A transcendent realm master, who was spying from a certain corner of the continent, suddenly had a change in expression. He shattered the light screen in front of him with a palm strike, and at the same time, retreated more than 100 feet. His face was still filled with fear. How did the other party discover me? Tick-tock, tick-tock, What's this sound? The Transcendent Realm Master slowly lowered his head, only to find a pool of blood suddenly appearing under his feet. Before the last thought arose, the Transcendent Realm Master had completely lost consciousness. Immediately after, his clothes were split into 2, revealing his sturdy body underneath. Then, a thin red line slowly appeared on his body. After another moment, his entire body was split into 2, and directly fell to the ground. One finger, killing a Transcendent Realm Master. This step didn't only happen to this person. Other Transcendent Realm Masters, Venerable Realm Masters, and even Dao Initiation Realm Masters were also affected as well. No matter what their intentions were, as long as they stared at Lin Yuan's existence at this moment, they would either die on the spot or pay an extremely painful price. For example, when a white-haired old man in white coat pointed his finger, he also retreated rapidly. At the same time, he reached out and grabbed a Dao Initiation Realm cultivator standing beside him. After a moment, the Dao Initiation Realm cultivator directly exploded into minced meat, and even his soul was directly annihilated. Similarly, the white-haired old man's right hand was also blown into minced meat. What's more terrifying was that no matter how much power he channeled, even if he didn't hesitate to use his precious divine power, he couldn't regenerate this right hand. Moreover, in his perception, his soul was also missing a part of his right hand. This also meant that from now on, even if he entered the reincarnation cycle, he would be born with a disability. He would either be born without a right hand, or his right hand would only be a decoration. What a vicious method. The white-haired old man sucked in a breath of cold air. He reached out and stopped a group of venerable realm masters and transcendents who rushed over after hearing the commotion. His eyes were crimson red. Now, everyone knew that Lin Yuan didn't have the backing of the demon court. However, there was also an extremely powerful existence behind Lin Yuan. Even when the demon court was at its peak, it didn't necessarily have such a terrifying method, right? Killing an demon ancestor was like chopping melons and vegetables. From countless miles away, a casual finger could take the life of a transcendent realm master. What kind of monster was this? What was even more frightening was that they had also heard the conversation between Lin Yuan and the man in the white coat. Although he didn't understand what the so-called colleague meant, judging from Lin Yuan's demeanor and tone, he wasn't the descendant or disciple of the doctor in the white coat. The two of them probably belonged to some special organization. Although there was a huge difference in power, their positions were equal. The other thing was that the man in the white coat had said that this world was unable to withstand his true body, so, this existence that could kill as he pleased was only a doppelganger or a puppet. Demon Court? The demon court was nothing. Even when the demon court was at its peak, it could not be crushed to death with one hand. The white-haired old man pondered for a moment and sighed, "Get people to prepare. See how many resources the northern frontier sent to us. Increase it by 10 times and send it back to the northern frontier. In addition, inform the disciples that if they don't have anything to do, they should immediately head to the northern frontier and help the northern frontier resist the sky demon's attack. Cancel all the probing." Whether it was handing the sky demon to Lin Yuan to deal with or conniving with the Dao Initiation Realm cultivators to deal with Lin Yuan, it was hard to say that these superiors didn't participate in this matter. Perhaps they didn't take action or express their opinions, but the actions of their subordinates couldn't be hidden from them. In a sense, they didn't stop it. All the probing was because Lin Yuan had amazing secrets and opportunities. Originally, the path of cultivation was to fight against the heavens. There was no such thing as being free and unfettered. People who were neither greedy nor ruthless could not survive in the cultivation world. Everyone wanted to swallow Lin Yuan and make Lin Yuan's opportunities their own. Thus, they constantly probed Lin Yuan to see what kind of opponents Lin Yuan could deal with. In the end, good fellow, they were good fellow. Rabbits will bite when forced into a corner. If this Black Jiao was forced into a corner, he might even slaughter the entire cultivation world. Furthermore, there was no doubt that someone like Lin Yuan was destined to be a fish in a pond. Sooner or later, he would walk out of the heavenly gates and head to a bigger world to cultivate. It was only a matter of time before he came into contact with the guardians of the heavenly gates. When the time came, just by looking at how Lin Yuan planned to kick Dao integration stage cultivators out of the game after breaking through, it was clear what kind of bitter consequences they would have to suffer if they became enemies with Lin Yuan. Perhaps it was too late for them to make up for it now, but paying a price to let this matter pass was much better than Lin Yuan directly destroying their inheritance, right? After all, human cultivators were different from the beasts. Although humans had books and words as teaching materials, everyone knew that the most important part of the sentence was actually the first half of the sentence. If there was no master to guide you, even if you studied the cultivation method for your entire life, you might not be able to make any progress. On the other hand, the beasts were particular about bloodline inheritance. They firmly believed that their deceased ancestors still remained in their soul and bloodline. As long as they cultivated step by step, they would be able to unlock the various magical powers and techniques left behind by their ancestors in their bloodline. Thus, as long as the beast's bloodline was not severed, their inheritance would not be destroyed. They only needed time to nurture powerful beasts. If the human cultivation world was heavily damaged by Lin Yuan, the sky martial world would fall into the Dark Age again. At that time, the humans who had bullied the beasts for countless years might even go extinct. No matter how one's heart was, after cultivating to the transcendent realm, one would more or less understand karma. If such a day really came, Lin Yuan would definitely suffer the consequences he deserved. However, those who caused all of this to happen because of their own selfish desires would not have a good ending. Thus, the moment the white-robed man showed his might, countless similar orders were issued from the Heavenly Gate Guardians' forces. Even the Tao Initiation Realm cultivators with big shots behind them began to lower their heads and admit their mistakes. Even the big shots had to pay 10 times the compensation. How many times would they have to pay? This was undoubtedly a shocking number. Other than that, there were many Tao Initiation Realm cultivators who did not know what happened in the Endless Sea. They only noticed that many forces had cut off contact with them. Either it was a unilateral declaration, or they were giving up on cooperation bit by bit. Among them, there were some who clearly had the attitude of cutting off contact with them even at a loss, which made them even more confused. However, when they went to look for them, the other party did not say anything. They only looked at them as if they were looking at dead people, and then ordered them to leave. There would always be some people who would be pushed out to vent Lin Yuan's anger, right? Chapter 840. Let's not talk about how the gate of heaven's side was in chaos for the time being, but 3 minutes, which was not a long time, had already quietly passed. The young man in the white coat pointed at the ancestor demon who was fleeing in the direction of the Willow Stone Fortress. Then, with a light smile, he stretched out his hand again and cut open a crack in the space barrier. Then, he stepped into it and disappeared. Lin Yuan, who was watching all of this coldly from the sidelines, was still sitting in the same place. His voice did not stop chanting. However, this time, the ancestor demons of the Endless Sea who were scared out of their wits did not dare to jump out and say anything. They were not fools and could understand the situation. First of all, they could be sure that the helper that Lin Yuan had just summoned was not from the sky martial world. If he wanted to descend here, he must have paid a sufficient price. Especially this kind of method of not going through the gate of heaven and directly stepping through the void to appear, the price to pay was even greater. Moreover, the other party's descent was not unlimited. In about 3 minutes, the other party would have to leave this world. But still, no one dared to provoke Lin Yuan. No one knew what price Lin Yuan had paid, and whether he had enough to summon that person again. No one dared to probe. The last guy who tried to probe had already lost his life. Even the other ancestor demons who were just watching from the sidelines and wanted to see if they could drink a mouthful of meat soup had suffered a calamity. Moreover, the white coat man's finger seemed to be as light as the wind and clouds, but it contained an extremely terrifying power. It was likely that those who had spied on this place had either died or paid an extremely painful price. Seeing that the Endless Sea's side had all fallen silent, Lin Yuan disdainfully sneered twice in his heart. This situation was naturally within his expectations. It was just like the nuclear weapons in his previous life. No matter how great the price you had to pay after using it, you only needed to let others know that you had a nuclear weapon in your hands. When others spoke to you, they would not dare to be too presumptuous. 3 million incense power was not much. At least in the eyes of the top hosts, this was only the reward for 3 minutes. But for an existence like Lin Yuan, if it was not for the merit of spreading words, he really would not be able to take out that much. Relying on his own accumulation, who knew when he would be able to accumulate 3 million incense power? Perhaps there were indeed some people who would not give up and continue to probe Lin Yuan. But after today's matter, most people or demonic beasts, as long as they did not have a death grudge with Lin Yuan, they would not easily become enemies with Lin Yuan. At the same time, the situation on the battlefield gradually changed. The Great Old Ones did not expect that almost all the ancestral monsters in the Willow Stone Sea would come out in full force and still not be able to stop Lin Yuan from continuing the battle of ideas. This time, they were truly flustered. They commanded the aberrations at the front line to madly attack Lin Yuan's area, wanting to find and eliminate this troublesome opponent, Lin Yuan. However, the Endless Sea's demonic beasts on the battlefield naturally would not let them do as they wished. One by one, they roared and desperately blocked the aberrations who wanted to attack Lin Yuan. Whether it was these demonic beasts or aberrations, they were thrown into the battlefield at this time. In fact, in the eyes of the higher-ups of both sides, they were nothing more than cannon fodder. Simply put, no matter how they fought among themselves, it would not really affect the overall situation. Even if they wiped out all the aberrations, they could not kill the Great Old Ones. If they lurked a little, they would be a ticking time bomb. No one knew when they would be able to brew a disaster comparable to or even more terrifying than today. In the War of the Cultivation World, what really determined the direction of the war was the battle between the strong. However, these Endless Sea's demonic beasts also knew that it was Lin Yuan's strange chanting that completely suppressed the power of the aberrations that had infected their minds. This way, they did not have to worry about being aberrated into monsters at any time, nor did they need to divert some of their attention to suppress their sea of consciousness. They could fight with all their strength. This was how the situation of the battle was turned around, and they would no longer be suppressed by the aberrations. Therefore, protecting Lin Yuan had become their subconscious behavior. It's time to move, right? Lin Yuan's eyelids twitched slightly, and he looked in the direction of the aberrations. It was absolutely impossible for these aberrations, who were temporarily transformed, to be opponents of these Endless Sea's demonic beasts. Even if their bodies were stronger than the demonic beasts after their transformation, and their means were stranger than the demonic beasts, the most fatal thing was that they did not have any discipline. What little intelligence they had left could not allow them to organize the corresponding formation to fight. Even when they encountered other aberrations blocking their way, they would directly attack. These were all fatal problems. If there was the power to distort the minds of other creatures, it would not matter. After all, under this degree of suppression, the opponent could not even use 70% of their strength. Naturally, there was nothing to be afraid of. However, in the current situation, no matter how powerful the aberration's individual strength was, they were not enough to compete with a battle formation. Wanting to kill or stop Lin Yuan was almost an impossible task for these aberrations. After all, the Great Old Ones had not appeared for a long time, and could not compare to the Endless Sea's many years of foundation. Even if they had distorted many demonic beasts for their own use, the number was extremely limited. In addition, now that they were blocked by the Endless Sea's demonic beasts, there was no way for them to replenish their manpower. At this time, one death was one less Great Old Ones. With the help of an alien like Lin Yuan, if the situation went smoothly, when the aberrations were eliminated one by one, the Great Old Ones would not be able to cause any trouble. They would be completely annihilated by the Endless Sea's demonic beasts. Leaving Lin Yuan alone. That was obviously impossible. Therefore, the ones who were going to make a move next should be the real Great Old Ones, the wise men and heroes of the old era. They were almighty beings who had died in the past. However, this world was not complete. The heaven realm and the underworld did not exist. Even the so-called ascension in cultivation was just stepping out of the heaven gate, crossing the sea of bitterness with the body, and going to a truly complete world. This also meant that the 6 paths of reincarnation in this world were not complete. Although the wandering souls and wild ghosts in this world could not affect the normal operation of the material world, this did not mean that they could not do anything. For example, fallen ancient existences like Yang Qinglin and the Fire Kirin could use all kinds of crooked ways to ensure that their intelligence would not be destroyed. They could even be reborn after absorbing enough energy. Even if they did not want to be reborn, it did not matter. They could still exist in the state of wandering souls and wild ghosts. Even the will of the world could not directly force the truly powerful existences to reincarnate. After all, this world was not complete. It was only the will of the world, and it did not have the power of the heavenly Tao. Chapter 841. Even the souls of ordinary people could resist reincarnation due to various reasons. As long as they could hide from the ghost messenger, they could live forever in this world, let alone those mighty figures with heavenly cultivation. The meaning of the existence of the underworld was to form a sufficiently powerful force, either suppressing or absorbing, sending the souls of these mighty figures into the cycle of reincarnation. Otherwise, ancient mighty figures like the Fire Kirin and Yang Qinglin would be like leaks, popping up from time to time. Whether it was the cultivators of this world or the will of the world, they would probably have a headache. It was just that the world was not complete now. The so-called underworld was just a river condensed by Lin Yuan. Therefore, these old rulers would wake up from the long river of time and struggle to come to the world of the living. They would mutate into all kinds of monsters, trying in vain to strangle the new era in the cradle so that their true spirits would not be destroyed and they would continue to exist in the world and receive incense offerings. Perhaps in the future, they would have the possibility of becoming gods. Whether it was for public or private reasons, the existence of these old rulers could be said to be Lin Yuan's mortal enemies, and they were the kind that could not be defeated. The reverse was also true. It's just that, Lin Yuan glanced in the direction of the Willow Stone Fortress, and his eyes became somewhat gloomy. He had indeed miscalculated a step before. He did not expect that the monsters of the Endless Sea would have ulterior motives. They wanted to use the power of the old rulers to eliminate the experts of the other sea monster races and ensure that they could become the new overlord of the Endless Sea. In the end, the two sides did not get along, and the matter directly went out of control. Now that those old rulers had appeared to kill him, these big shots of the Endless Sea would probably turn a blind eye to it, right? After all, other than Lin Yuan himself, no one knew if he could summon the white-robed man or his colleague, who had the same combat strength as the white-robed man, to help him. On the bright side, if the old rulers were also afraid of the existence of Lin Yuan's nuclear weapon, they might directly retreat and not dare to continue fighting with Lin Yuan. They would wait for them to discuss countermeasures before coming out to find an opportunity to fight. However, on the other hand, the old rulers might as well advance with their entire army instead of retreating, forcing the monsters of the Endless Sea to come out and fight. Who knew how long these great old ones were going to hide? Lin Yuan had long since figured out the system's quest mechanism. The so-called rewards and punishments were based on the content and difficulty of the quest. They had to conform to the standards of the rules. So, once the quest failed, even if the system was unwilling, it had to give the corresponding punishment. Without the system, could Lin Yuan still be so arrogant? The answer was no. He had been deliberately suppressing his strength, so that every step he took was incomparably firm. He was guarding against the possibility that the system would pull the carpet from under him and directly turn him into a puppet or scrap after defeating the big boss Hung Jun. However, while the path was correct, some of its functions were still borrowing the power of the system. For example, without the system's sacrificial exchange, his path to the totem would be broken. There would be no shortcuts to the growth and creation of his spawns, and he could only let them evolve on their own. Do you want to get rid of the shadow of the system? Sure. First, you have to become a god. It was fine if he couldn't become a god, because the system couldn't do anything to him. It could even be said that the system needed him. However, if he couldn't become a god, it was equivalent to binding his future to this world. He was destined to not be able to take revenge, and Lin Yuan would really go crazy. What should I do? Thoughts spun rapidly in Lin Yuan's mind. One idea after another floated up and one after another disappeared. After about 5 or 6 breaths, Lin Yuan slowly raised his head and looked at the battlefield with a gloomy gaze. Immediately, the principles that he kept chanting suddenly stopped. The palpitating and uneasy distorted spirit changed the situation of being suppressed and regained the upper hand. Caught off guard, many sea demon warriors were distorted into aberrations. The number was actually more than the number of aberrations killed in the previous battle. The remaining sea demon warriors returned to the situation where their strength was suppressed and began to hold their heads and take a beating. The situation of the battle changed again. This Black Jiao, why did he stop again? A sea demon ancestor's face was as gloomy as water, but he didn't dare to get angry. After all, the scene of being chased had left a deep impression on him. He now knew very well that the Black Jiao wasn't an existence that they could casually berate or toy with. Once he bared his fangs, he was a big boss that could surpass them. Even if the Black Jiao's cultivation wasn't high, it wouldn't change this fact. However, he still couldn't help but get angry. After all, they had risked being distorted and rushed out of the fortress to force the Black Jiao to shut up. In the end, the Black Jiao ignored them and instead called out a colleague to kill them. After today, many sea demon ancestors would no longer exist. The territories and benefits that they had taken in the past would all have to be spat out, and they would become inferior sea demon clans. But now, good heavens, he was forced to stop, but he actually stopped by himself while chanting. At first, the sea demon ancestor, who had realized that Lin Yuan might have a great killing weapon in his hands that even the dragon clan of the four seas couldn't help but have a dark expression. After a long while, he gritted his teeth and said, "This guy is teaching us how to do things." Previously, he used some unknown language to suppress the distorted power of the aberrations. He showed us that victory was in our hands and forced us to rush out to stop him. Only then did he show his muscles to intimidate us. His goal is to tell us that he isn't a junior, but an existence that can stand on equal footing with us and even make us fear him. At this point, the sea demon ancestor thought carefully before continuing. As for why he stopped now, it's just to tell us to put away those so-called schemes and obediently exterminate these aberrations. It's because only he can suppress the distorted power of the aberrations. If he doesn't stand on our side, no one will have a good time. Don't even think about becoming the overlord of the endless sea. This Black Jiao is actually this vicious. Those warriors fighting at the front lines are all protecting him. How could he? Another sea demon ancestor spoke. His expression didn't look too good either. After all, among the various sea demon clans, his sea demon ancestor's bloodline was the lowest. At the same time, they also reproduced the most. Close to 30% of the warriors fighting at the front lines were his descendants. Although he didn't feel bad for his descendants when they suddenly fell into a disadvantageous position, he naturally couldn't be happy. This is another part of his intelligence. The sea demon ancestor, who seemed to have seen through Lin Yuan's intentions, sighed softly. Chapter 842. What do you mean? The face of the demon ancestor, who had lost the most descendants, changed. He seemed to have thought of something, but he couldn't be sure. The ancestral demon, who seemed to have seen through Lin Yuan's intentions, shook his head and said, "It is telling us that if we want to play dirty tricks, it is more willing to lose face than us. Whoever is scheming sneakily behind its back, it dares to directly throw away its responsibility and let the endless sea suffer a calamity. Don't forget, this Black Jiao is different from us. His base isn't in the endless sea." Although the demon ancestor had misinterpreted part of Lin Yuan's meaning, the general idea was correct. This was what Lin Yuan wanted to express. He was now volunteering to help. After all, no one knew that he had a mission. Volunteering to help meant that he could quit at any time. Not only did the endless sea's monsters not dare to stop him, they even had to hand over their outstanding descendants to Lin Yuan and let Lin Yuan take them to the Tianwu continent to seek refuge. Perhaps they could preserve a trace of their bloodline and not be completely destroyed by the aberrations. He was helping out because of friendship, but not helping out was also his duty. No one could stand out and criticize him. Want Lin Yuan to take the thunder himself? Sorry, that's impossible. Lin Yuan indeed knew the importance of this mission. That was why he was so attentive. However, if he really couldn't do it, Lin Yuan wouldn't force himself to do it. After all, he still had the universal scripture. At worst, he could just take a gamble. If he won, he would eat the whole world. If he lost, his soul would scatter. He liked a phrase he had heard in his previous life. A person's entire life was a gamble. Some people got rich and some lost everything. The real winners weren't lucky, but they were able to find the most important one out of countless opportunities, and then bet everything they had on it. Gambling his life for the endless sea. It wasn't worth it. However, for the sake of cultivating the universal scripture, gambling on whether or not the world's will would dare to touch him? This was worth it. Furthermore, the problem of the great old ones was not something that the beasts of the endless sea could face alone. The guardians of the heavenly gate who were watching the show on the Tianwu continent could not escape responsibility. They could indeed comfortably stand at the back and reap the benefits, but they also had to think carefully. If the beasts of the endless sea lost to the great old ones, how should they face the invasion of the aberrations from the entire endless sea? At that time, Lin Yuan could still stand out. After all, with the endless sea as a precedent, even if the guardians of the heavenly gate were unwilling to cooperate with Lin Yuan, they had to obey him. However, if it really came to that step, Lin Yuan would definitely not just pat his butt and do it. He still had to secretly make arrangements to ensure that the great old ones could exterminate the endless sea demonic beasts as quickly as possible and directly threaten the Sky Martial continent. Only then would it be possible to complete the mission. It was still the same sentence. In front of an absolute egoist, don't talk about righteousness and humanity. Those things didn't exist. These beasts of the endless sea were very greedy, but Lin Yuan wasn't a good person either. He couldn't be the embodiment of selfless justice. He could suffer a loss because of his own calculations, but he definitely wouldn't watch others follow behind his butt and wait to reap benefits. He would rather not let anyone get any benefits, but he would first crush those behind his butt to death. I understand the logic, but this Black Jiao, what exactly is he trying to do? An ancestral demon opened his mouth and said. Among the dragon race of the four seas, a young man who had almost condensed a human body flashed in his eyes and said in a deep voice, this Black Jiao is having a battle of ideas with the aberration. He must know something that we don't. It's even possible that these aberrations were created by him, and we're just taking the blame for him. The young man who spoke was the youngest dragon god of the dragon race of the four seas. Just by looking at his appearance, he was a handsome man. However, he didn't look handsome. His black hair was wrapped tightly around his two horns. Unless his hair was scattered, no one would be able to tell that this young man had the bloodline of the dragon race. Even if that's the case, what does it mean? This blame has already been placed on us. It's not something that we can avoid. Even if there's a problem with this Black Jiao, he's still a member of the dragon race of the four seas. Moreover, the solution to this situation is on him. If you take out your anger on him, you'll only force him to leave the endless sea and leave us here to die. The ancestral demon who asked the question glared at the dragon race youth and growled, I'm asking what this Black Jiao wants, and what we should do to make him continue to chant that strange language. I'm not here to listen to you shirking your responsibility. If you have the guts, kill the great old ones now. I promise I won't do anything and will even help you kill that Black Jiao. How about it? You. The dragon race youth's eyes turned cold, but he forcibly suppressed his temper and didn't lose his temper on the spot. However, when his gaze fell in the direction of Lin Yuan, the jealousy in the dragon race youth's eyes couldn't be concealed. He was 600 years old this year. Ever since he had awakened his spirit, he had cultivated all the way to the ancestral demon realm. It could be said that everything had been smooth sailing. He was known as a peerless genius of the dragon race who was comparable to the ancestral dragons. There were even some dragon bloodline demonic beasts who believed that if his bloodline was as pure as the four ancestral dragons, he might be able to reach a higher realm than the ancestral dragons and become a true immortal existence. He wouldn't have to rely on the worship of the dragon race of the four seas to live. However, since the appearance of Lin Yuan, the title of the number one genius of the dragon race hadn't fallen on him for a long time. Previously, the Black Jiao had caused a huge ruckus with the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas and lost a total of 8 of his 9 sons. Even Ao Sifan and the other evil dragons were turned to the opposite side of the dragon race of the Four Seas. However, under this kind of irreconcilable hatred, an ancestral dragon actually openly invited Lin Yuan, who was only at the late-stage River Lord realm at that time, to be the 7th dragon god of the Dragon God Temple. What kind of honor was this? What right did that Black Jiao have? Wasn't it just because he was born into a good family and had many opportunities? If those opportunities were given to him, how could he be in such an awkward situation now? How could this ancestral demon dare to reprimand him? Flames of jealousy burned in his heart, and some strange sounds seemed to ring in his ears. However, no one paid attention to this dragon race youth's secret changes. Instead, they were all discussing what the Black Jiao wanted. I think, the ancestral demon who had guessed Lin Yuan's thoughts cleared his throat. After attracting a lot of attention, he said, the aberrations won't allow an existence like the Black Jiao to suppress them. Very soon, experts will appear to kill the Black Jiao. The Black Jiao should have stopped now because he wants to see our attitude. He wants us to send experts to protect him. Otherwise, he will probably turn around and leave, no longer involving himself in this matter. Chapter 843. The dragon tribe youth took a while before he could clearly hear the voice that was so weak that it seemed like it would disperse with a gust of wind. Let it die. Kill it. As long as it dies, you will still be the number one genius of the dragon tribe. As long as it dies, you will be able to obtain everything it has. At that time, no one will be able to deny your achievements. The voice by his ear kept repeating these words, and the dragon tribe youth's eyes began to show signs of struggle. He was very clear what the Black Jiao meant to the Endless Sea. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was the only hope for the Endless Sea's demonic beasts to defeat the aberration. If Lin Yuan died in his hands, the entire Endless Sea would not be able to escape a calamity. At that time, the dragon tribe of the Four Seas would not be able to protect him, they would be the first to hunt him down. But the voice by his ear kept ringing, and it had to be said that every word fell into his heart. He could not even find a reason to reject it. That's right, as long as I kill the Black Jiao, I will still be the number one genius of the dragon tribe of the Four Seas. Even if the ancestor dragon sees me, he will have to treat me with respect. If I can obtain the opportunity from the Black Jiao, then I won't even have to look at the faces of those old fellows. I will become the supreme existence that dominates the Endless Sea. No, not just the Endless Sea, even the Sky Martial Continent will be mine. As long as I kill the Black Jiao, I will obtain everything. What am I still hesitating for? This time, the voice that rang out was no longer the weak voice by his ear, as if it would be blown away by the wind at any time. These words were his voice. His expression changed, and his eyes flashed as he turned to look at the other ancestor demons. Seeing that no one was paying attention to him, he heaved a sigh of relief. Was that my voice just now? That scared me to death, I thought I shouted it out myself. The dragon tribe youth heaved a sigh of relief, and at the same time, his heart relaxed. When he turned his head again, in his eyes, there was a faint black line. However, it was just a flash, and no one noticed that there was a hint of hostility in his eyes. That's reasonable, but the problem is this really what the Black Jiao wants? A demon ancestor whose eyes were flashing brightly suddenly opened his mouth and said doubtfully, the Black Flood Dragon has too many secrets. I even suspect that the calamity of our Endless Sea was orchestrated by him. Otherwise, how can we explain why that white-clothed killing god appeared just now and specifically targeted us and didn't even touch a single aberration? With that person's ability, isn't it just a matter of breath? A second voice was heard. Some ancestral demons thought that Lin Yuan had already shown his strength and value. Next, they should consider how to rope in Lin Yuan instead of continuing to plot behind his back. Another part of the ancestral demons thought that those aberrations were related to Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan wanted to use this opportunity to lure the strong ones among them out of the city, then ambush them one by one, and finally unify the entire Endless Sea. The two sides were in a heated argument. In fact, anyone with half a brain would know that the aberration had too many secrets. Lin Yuan might know some of them, but Lin Yuan was not the main culprit of the aberration, because everyone could see that the aberration's ability to distort the minds of other creatures was almost unsolvable. If Lin Yuan wanted to borrow the aberration's power to unify the Endless Sea, there was no need for him to stand out at this time. He only needed to find a place to hide and watch the show. At most, in a dozen years, the Endless Sea's beasts would be completely assimilated by the aberration. This was something that all the Endless Sea's beasts acknowledged. Unless they could think of a way to suppress the aberration's distorting power, they would have no chance of winning the war. Moreover, a dozen years might be a lifetime for an ordinary beast, but for a beast like Lin Yuan, who could be considered to have achieved success in cultivation, it was only a dozen months for a human. It was not a difficult time to endure. Therefore, everyone knew that this argument was in fact just because the aberration's beasts knew that the front line was extremely dangerous. They did not want to put themselves in danger, but sending a few beast kings to protect Lin Yuan might not be useful. Ever since Lin Yuan came to the Endless Sea, how many beast kings had died? I'll go. Just as the aberration's beasts were still discussing, the Dragon Clan youth gritted his teeth and growled, immediately suppressing the voices of the aberration's discussion. The aberration's beasts all looked at him in surprise. Even the dragon gods of the dragon palaces of the four seas had faces full of disbelief. They were all on the same side. It was public knowledge that this young dragon god was jealous of Black Jiao. It was just that for the sake of face, no one exposed this matter. However, at this time, this kid should be eager for Black Jiao to die. Why would he take the initiative to ask to protect Black Jiao, who made him burn with jealousy? Did he want to play some tricks on Black Jiao? Or, did he want to do it himself? No matter which possibility it was, these dragon gods did not want to see a situation like this. If this kid really thought that he wanted to kill Black Jiao out of jealousy, no matter if he really succeeded or if Black Jiao summoned the White God of Slaughter to start a massacre, it was not a situation they wanted to see. So what if the White God of Slaughter could not break through the Willow Rock region? When the Black Jiao returned to the Tianwu continent, were they going to stay here and wait for death? Didn't you just break through recently? I'm afraid your realm is still unstable. You might not be a match for the aberration's experts. I think we should send someone else. An ancestral dragon glanced at the Dragon Clan youth and said gloomily. The aberration's faces all changed. They had been arguing for so long because they were unwilling to leave the city to protect Lin Yuan. After all, no one knew what kind of experts the aberration had. However, they also knew that when the aberration first appeared, an ancestral dragon went to investigate and suppress it. In the end, that ancestral dragon was never seen again. It was not easy for a hothead to say that he wanted to protect Lin Yuan. In the end, before anyone could react, he was rejected by an ancestral dragon. How the F***ck could this work? Just as the ancestral monster ancestors were about to voice their displeasure, Ancestral Gragon, who had rejected the offer, rolled his eyes and said in a low voice, "My fellow Taoists, you are all extraordinary. The Black Jiao is the only way to break out of this situation, but perhaps there are also some among us who have been distorted by the aberrations. It's just that they are well hidden and have yet to show themselves. Sending that one out alone is unfair to the one who was sent out, and it's also not safe. If something happens, we won't be able to save him in time." It then changed the topic and said in a deep voice, "What I mean is that you should discuss this with your clans. If there are multiple ancestral monster ancestors, send one ancestral monster ancestor. If there's only one ancestral monster ancestor, send several monster kings. What do you think?" Chapter 844. The ancestral dragon's arrangement was not biased. The various sea demon clans present did not like to place their lives in the hands of others. If they were unlucky and sent out an existence that had been assimilated by the aberration, killing Lin Yuan's hope, they would not be able to save him in time from the Willow Stone Fortress. If that happened, they would have nowhere to cry. If something happened to each sea demon ancestor, although it would be a great blow to their vitality, it would not cause the sea demon clan to decline. If there was only one sea demon ancestor or no sea demon ancestor, sending some sea demon kings to assist would be considered as fulfilling their duties. If anyone dared to stand out at this time, they would be torn apart by the other angry sea demon ancestors. I have no objections. The Dragon Clan youth took a deep breath. He did not hide the dissatisfaction in his eyes, but he still insisted, Dragon Ancestor, since each Sea Demon Ancestor is going to send a Sea Demon Ancestor to protect the Sea Demon Ancestor, I will represent the Four Seas Dragon Clan. Please don't worry. This junior is indeed jealous of the Black Jiao, but I can distinguish between right and wrong. I will not do anything that will anger the heavens. These words were said with sincerity. He was not even afraid that others would be wary of him. He openly said that he was jealous of Lin Yuan, including the dissatisfaction in his eyes. It was more like he was upset that the ancestral dragon did not trust him, and not because of his own plan being ruined. The sea demon ancestor who had seen through Lin Yuan's thoughts spoke again. He said in a deep voice, the Dragon King is right. If each sea demon ancestor contributes, I dare not say that no one will lose out, but it is definitely the fairest method. However, since the Dragon King also said that there might be aberrations among us, we will settle down 5 miles away from the Black Jiao as a precaution. If anything happens, we can help each other. We can also prevent people with ill intentions from sneaking up on the Black Jiao and assassinating him. I suggest that if anyone crosses these 5 miles for no reason, we will kill them together. All right. That's how it should be. Kill them together. As soon as he said that, the other ancestral demon ancestors began to clamor as well. Damn you. After I kill that black flood dragon and obtain its fortuitous encounter, I'll make sure you die without a burial ground. The Dragon Tribe youth smiled in agreement as he shot a sinister glance at the sea demon who had made the suggestion. When he turned around, a black, illusory line appeared in his eyes once again. However, this time, the black line was clearly a lot more solid, and the hostility in his eyes was even more vigorous. That's interesting. Lin Yuan's gaze shifted slightly as he saw a group of demon ancestors and demon kings walking out of the Willow Stone Fortress. His eyes turned deep and meaningful. His premonition was reminding him that there was a great threat among the demon ancestors and demon kings who came to protect him. However, he did not specifically point out who it was, nor did he mention if there was only one threat. However, he was certain that he would lose his life if he was careless. Who could it be? While Lin Yuan was deep in thought, he found that the demon ancestors and demon kings had stopped at a distance of 5 miles away from him. With him as the center, they formed a circular formation, which was almost airtight. Even if the old rulers appeared, if they couldn't break through the line of defense of these powerhouses, they were destined not to be able to rush in front of him. Therefore, my danger does not come from the experts on the side of the great old ones. Instead, it comes from the fact that there are several existences among this group of demon beasts who want to take the opportunity to kill me. However, the Endless Seas demon beasts seem to have thought of this as well, so they set a rule early on to stop a certain distance away from me. This also means that whoever comes within 2.5 kilometers of me first is most likely the existence that wants to kill me. If nothing happened, the 2.5 kilometers would be an absolutely safe zone. However, since the other party dared to come out, it was impossible that they were unprepared. Therefore, Lin Yuan's heterochromatic eyes flashed, and he murmured, the one hiding among them is also a mutant. Since they can't get close to me when nothing happens, then the great old ones will definitely come to create chaos. Once one side can't handle it, the demon beasts in other directions will definitely come to support. Therefore, first of all, we can eliminate the group in front of me. Because of the formation here, the Great Old Ones can't swim or burrow into the ground. They can only come straight from the direction of the battlefield. The people in front of me have no chance to get close to me. They are the first batch of existences to fight. When his gaze fell on the position that was impossible to get close to, Lin Yuan's eyes revealed a touch of helplessness. These ancestral demons and demon kings did not sincerely want to protect him. They only wanted to use him as a trump card to suppress the Great Old Ones. They did not want anything to happen to him so easily. Although they were here, they did not put in any effort. The first to face the enemy were mostly the weaker ancestral demons or demon kings. In other words, the people who wanted to kill him were existences with some weight in the endless sea. He could not tell anything just by looking at their positions. After all, Lin Yuan could only be sure that those who were close to the battlefield did not want to kill him, but he could not be sure that those who were close to the Willow Stone Fortress wanted to kill him. This was very troublesome. However, with the arrival of these guards, Lin Yuan began the battle of ideas again. As he spoke, the sea demon warriors at the front line once again suppressed the mutants. However, this time, the situation did not reverse. Because as Lin Yuan spoke, some of the demon ancestors and demon kings in the guard team showed painful expressions. They roared and rushed toward Lin Yuan's area. However, before they could get far, they were stopped by the other guards. After a fight, they were killed on the spot. At this point, it was certain that there were no more mutants in Guard Team 5. Boom! Along with a loud bang, no one knew what had happened on the front lines. All of a sudden, a huge smoke screen was lifted. All kinds of dust, rocks, and flesh flew in all directions. There was also the scene of siren warriors being sent flying. It was a spectacular sight. There was no doubt that this was the attack of a Great Old One. Even some of the powerful demon ancestors had grave expressions on their faces. It was obvious that the attacker was not weak. When the dust and smoke dissipated, a group of demon beasts exclaimed. Although the Great Old One who attacked was covered with all kinds of sarcomas and tentacles, and even the gray cuticle had covered its original scales and skin, they could still recognize at a glance that this guy was one of the 4 ancestral dragons of the Dragon Temple. Since the mutants appeared, it disappeared without a trace. They did not expect it to be distorted into a mutant. Blackwater Dragon King, please protect yourself. The ancestral dragons are all powerful beings who have survived since ancient times. They have many means. We have to fight this ancestral dragon with all our strength. I'm afraid it's difficult to be distracted. A demon ancestor roared loudly and took the lead to rush toward the mutant ancestral dragon. Chapter 845. Lin Yuan looked at the ancestral demon rushing toward the aberrant ancestral dragon, and a fierce look flashed across his eyes. Something was wrong. He still felt like there was a dagger at his back. The existence that wanted to kill him was still alive, and had not been eliminated like the other aberrants. It was still lurking among the guards, waiting for the right time to attack. But the problem was, you're not an aberrant, yet you want to kill me? Are you crazy? Lin Yuan was speechless. The situation was already so bad. Without his help, the demon beasts of the Endless Sea would be destroyed sooner or later. Why would there be some normal demon beasts that wanted to kill him at this time? This was not the way to kill a donkey after it had outlived its usefulness. The donkey had not even started to grind yet. Huh? Lin Yuan's face suddenly changed. He turned his head and stared at an existence that looked no different from a human being. Since it was not an aberrant, it did not care about the overall situation and wanted to kill him at this time. It was nothing more than a personal grudge. Lin Yuan did not dare to say how many friends he had in the Endless Sea, but he also did not have many enemies. If he had to say that he had a grudge, perhaps it was only the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas. Could it be this guy? Seeing Lin Yuan's gaze fall on him, the Dragon Clan youth was slightly startled at first, and then there was a hint of panic in his eyes. After all, he was only an ancestral demon. If he was exposed at this time, his fate would not be much better than those aberrants who could not hold back. But how did the Black Jiao discover him? Was there something wrong with his disguise? It's you. Lin Yuan's eyes flashed with a cold light. Although the Dragon Clan youth lowered his head after being startled for a moment, Lin Yuan still saw a flash of panic in his eyes through the eye of God. The motive was also right. He did have some enmity with the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas. Even if an ancestral dragon threw out an olive branch, that was the ancestral dragon's own opinion, and did not represent the opinions of the other members of the Dragon Clan. Moreover, Lin Yuan had not accepted the olive branch, so it was normal for members of the Dragon Clan to want to kill him. Among those who had indirectly died at Lin Yuan's hands, there might be existences that this guy valued very much. Otherwise, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas still did not give up and wanted to get the method of bloodline purification from him. On the other side, the mutated ancestral dragon was clearly not to be trifled with. A large group of ancestral demons and demon kings joined forces, but they were still unable to gain any advantage over it. After all, this mutated ancestral dragon had not only inherited the abilities of an ancestral dragon, but also the terrifying physique of a mutated being. Even the thick water squeezed out of the sarcomas and the constantly whipping tentacles could easily take the life of a demon king. More and more ancestral demons rushed to the area where the mutated ancestral dragon was and joined the battle, including the Dragon Clan youth standing at the very back. He also pretended that he only had eyes for the mutated ancestral dragon and rushed forward, but his path of advance was clearly aimed at Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan quietly moved to the side, but found that his opponent was still not letting him go. He also adjusted his position and looked like he was determined to kill Lin Yuan. "You're courting death." Lin Yuan looked at the Dragon Clan youth with a gloomy gaze and cursed in his heart. Is there something wrong with this guy's brain? At this time, he still wants to kill me. Is he really not worried that the endless sea will be destroyed? What is the attitude of the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas? With the status of the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas, if they were determined to kill me, they would not have made such a big fuss. They only needed to send this Dragon Clan youth to protect me and find an opportunity to end me. But if the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas had no ill intentions towards me, they would most likely send another ancestral demon to carry out the task of protecting me, and not this guy. Run! Lin Yuan swung his big tail, rapped Tai Mu, who was closely guarding him, and quickly left the area. He bypassed the dragon youth and rushed toward the Willow Stone Fortress. Although his mouth still did not stop, the suppression was not as strong as it was at the beginning as he made such a move to escape from the battlefield. Although the distortion power of the mutants had not yet recovered, the old masters hiding behind the scenes could already command the frontline mutants to fight, so the situation once again fell into a stalemate. Damn it, why? Isn't this the revenge of killing one's father? In the eye of the divine god, the Dragon Clan youth was still following closely behind him, as if it was time to shed all pretense of cordiality. He was not afraid of others discovering anything unusual and only cared about chasing after Lin Yuan. Even if Lin Yuan ran to the ends of the earth, he would kill Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan really could not understand how he had formed such a big grudge with this guy. But soon, the Dragon Clan youth realized that he had left the formation. When the other ancestral demons were rushing to the front line to fight the mutated ancestral dragons, he was chasing after Lin Yuan. It was inevitable that the other ancestral demons would be suspicious of him. The Dragon Clan youth's heart sank slightly, but his reaction was extremely fast. He shouted, "Blackwater Dragon King, please stay. The situation on the battlefield is very strange now. Please don't run around. If anything happens to you, the endless sea will be destroyed. Please come to me quickly, I will protect you and not let the mutated beings hurt you." Seeing that Lin Yuan did not listen at all, he could not help but show a touch of anxiety in his eyes. He shouted, "Blackwater Dragon King, I admit that there are mutated beings in our team, but haven't those guys been dealt with? Besides, you and I are both members of the Dragon Bloodline Demon Beast. Even if you don't trust the other demon beasts of the endless sea, don't tell me you don't trust your own brothers. Good acting. Lin Yuan almost believed it if it was not for the uneasy feeling in his back. Seeing that the Black Jiao did not stop, the Dragon Clan youth's eyes turned cold. After all, if the Black Jiao escaped into the Willow Stone Fortress, with the protection of the Dragon Temple and the other ancestral demons, he would not have the chance to attack even if he wanted to. Besides, the Black Jiao was already interested in him. Such an opportunity would not come again. No. Today, he had to kill this Black Jiao no matter what. Take back everything that he deserved. This thought rose in his mind. Blackwater Dragon King, I'm warning you one last time. Come to me immediately, I will protect you. You refused to cooperate with our inspection before, so I have the right to suspect that you are also a mutated being. Stop right there, you are not allowed to run into the Willow Stone Fortress. The Dragon Clan youth did not care about holding back in his desperation. He burst out at full speed and even opened his mouth to spit out a dragon's breath made of demonic power. Without any warning, he sprayed it directly at Lin Yuan. Chapter 846. If the dragon breath of an ancestral monster realm dragon was not handled properly, it could instantly destroy an entire city. Lin Yuan's soul almost left his body when he was shrouded by the dragon's breath. Almost without thinking, he circulated all the demonic energy in his body and mobilized the water around him to rush toward the dragon's breath. However, when the two forces collided, the water flow Lin Yuan controlled was instantly dispersed, and the demonic energy contained in it was also instantly evaporated by the dragon's breath. With the gap of two great realms, the demonic energy of the two sides could not be compared in terms of quality or quantity. Coupled with the fact that Lin Yuan had previously exchanged blows with the demonic beast with the bloodline of Wu Zhiqi and hired a hired thug to show off his muscles, although Lin Yuan's Jaws flame power had not been depleted, he really could not use any decent means. If he were to rely on his own strength to deal with this dragon youth, he would probably die on the spot in less than 3 moves. However, the timing of the appearance of the aberrant ancestral dragon was too ingenious, directly attracting and restraining most of the ancestral monster realm experts. The remaining ones were not qualified to intervene in a battle of this level and could only cooperate with the various monster kings to eliminate the aberrant ancestral dragon. Even if they wanted to help, they were really no match for the dragon youth. Moreover, there was a deeper scheme involved. Who knew whether the dragon youth's killing of Black Jiao was ordered by the Dragon Temple? Even if it was not ordered by the Dragon Temple, so what? This dragon tribe youth didn't care about the bigger picture. Attacking the Black Flood Dragon at a time like this would incur the wrath of the masses. It didn't matter if he succeeded or not. If he succeeded, the sea monster clans would denounce him, and the dragon tribe of the 4 seas would have to pay a huge price to appease the masses. Furthermore, the dragon tribe of the 4 seas would lose a descendant with limitless potential like the Black Flood Dragon. It was a win-win situation for them. But what if he failed? The Black Jiao would also be standing on the opposite side of the 4 seas dragon clan. If he invited 1 or 2 more helpers to deal with the 4 seas dragon clan in a fit of anger, even without the hidden danger of the great old ruler, the 4 seas dragon clan could forget about continuing to be the overlord of the endless sea. The deep-rooted bad habits of living creatures were vividly displayed at this moment. Indeed, Lin Yuan was a very important means to break the stalemate, but the 4 seas dragon clan had single-handedly resisted the aberrant for so long. If they did not have a few things that could suppress the aberrant, they would have been unable to contain the fire long ago and would not wait for Black Jiao to reveal the aberrant matter. If other ancestral monster ancestors made a move, they would certainly go forward to stop them. However, they were happy to see the dragon race of the 4 seas take action. After all, the dragon race of the 4 seas would be the first to suffer. Beast. An ancestral dragon ancestor dragon clans, dragon clans, and dragon clan, the place where Lin Yuan and the old ruler had a battle of ideas was actually not far away. It was just a little bit out of the control range of the Willow Stone Fortress. With the strength of the ancestor demon realm, he could quickly arrive there. However, one of the parties involved was also in the ancestor demon realm. When it arrived, the Dragon Clan youth would have to make at least 3 to 5 moves. If Lin Yuan couldn't withstand it, he would end up dead on the spot. Black Jiao. I told you to stop right there. The Dragon Clan's youth's face was gloomy, as if he did not expect Lin Yuan to not even dare to fight and only run away. The anger in his heart burned even more. He felt that Lin Yuan was looking down on him and was unwilling to fight with him. Before the first dragon breath was completely resolved by Lin Yuan, it opened its mouth again and spat out 3 dragon breaths in a row. After these 3 dragon breaths, the demonic power on its body was weakened, and its demonic power, which was as majestic as the sea, was almost consumed by 2/3 at this moment, without any leeway left. This was no longer a simple attempt to kill Lin Yuan. Under the devastation of these 4 dragon breaths, Lin Yuan would not even have a corpse left if he was not careful. As Lin Yuan swam rapidly, he saw an ancestral dragon rushing towards him with a face full of shock and anger. He did not sense the existence of any threat, so he understood that this ancestral dragon did not want him to die here, so he specially came to rescue him. As long as he could hold on until this ancestral dragon rushed to his side, the rest would be easy. With a chance of survival, the despair in Lin Yuan's heart faded a little, and he continued to swim with Tai Mu. It was not that he had to drag Tai Mu with him, but at present, the brave Crab Clan was a good helper. He could not just leave Tai Mu to fend for himself and only care about escaping. In addition, if things really got out of hand, he could directly throw Tai Mu out to block the opponent's attacks. At least he could buy a few more breaths of time to ensure his safety. But now that he thought about it, the actions of this Dragon Clan youth were strange. He was clearly rational, otherwise he would not have endured for so long without making a move. Moreover, after making a move, he kept asking Lin Yuan to come to his side so that he could protect Lin Yuan and dispel the vigilance of those ancestral demons who did not have time to investigate the situation here. Even when he made a move, he went all out every time, clearly not intending to give Lin Yuan any chance to make a comeback. However, it was impossible for a rational existence not to see the importance of the ideological conflict between him and the old ruler in this war. Then, why did he have to kill him, and why did he have to do it at this time? Was there any benefit to him? No. Was there any benefit to the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas? There was none. If he killed Lin Yuan at this time, the final beneficiary would definitely be the old ruler's side. However, when he was engaged in the ideological conflict earlier, some of the aberrations hidden among the guards could not hold back and removed their disguises to try to kill Lin Yuan. At that time, Lin Yuan was also observing each of the demonic beasts through the eye of God. At that time, this Dragon Clan youth did not show any discomfort at all. This was unreasonable. As long as he was influenced by the old ruler, no matter how shrewd he was, it was useless. Under this kind of ideological conflict, it was impossible to hold back. Therefore, this Dragon Clan youth was most likely not an aberration. But the question was that really the case? If that was the case, the timing of the appearance of the aberration ancestral dragon was too coincidental. As soon as it appeared, it stalled most of the experts on his side. At that time, the Dragon Clan youth did not look surprised at all, as if he had already known this would happen. At that time, he had been staring at Lin Yuan. Although he was moving forward, he was not moving closer to the aberration ancestral dragon, but toward himself. What kind of problem had occurred in between? What was the relationship between the old ruler and this Dragon Clan youth? If he did not figure this out, Lin Yuan felt that he could fall into a dead end at any time. Chapter 847. The Great Old Ones were not scary, because Lin Yuan only needed to have a battle of ideals to test who was abnormal and who was normal. However, the dragon race youth was obviously colluding with the Great Old Ones, but he could not even test out the battle of ideals. He was like a sharp blade hanging above Lin Yuan's head. If he could not see through this method, any demonic beast around him in the future could become a knife for the great old ones to kill him. This time, he was prepared, but he still ended up in this situation. What if he was not prepared next time? With a belly full of worries, Lin Yuan clenched his teeth and crazily swung his flood dragon body, throwing out undercurrents at the bottom of the sea. However, they could not even stop the 4 dragon breaths. Bang! 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 3 muffled sounds were heard. Lin Yuan only saw 3 pure white scales flying over his head. For some reason, when Lin Yuan looked at the 3 scales, countless emotions suddenly appeared in his heart. There was intimacy, reverence, and even a trace of fear hidden in his blood. These are dragon scales. And they are scales from a true dragon. As everyone knew, dragons were born to be extremely powerful, but every creature had a weakness. For example, the reverse scale of a dragon was not the reverse scale that people in his previous life would say, touch the reverse scale of a dragon and you'll die. Instead, it was the only weak spot on a real dragon's body. A young dragon was not considered powerful. In the great wasteland world, there were even some powerful demonic beasts that specialized in hunting young dragons. However, when a true dragon grew up, its scales would be hard to injure. The swords and sabers here were not weapons in the hands of mortals. In the era when true dragons roamed, no matter if it was a transformed demon or an ancient human, they did not use ordinary items. They were either innate spiritual treasures or acquired spiritual treasures. However, even if these powerful treasures were equipped, they might not be able to hurt a true dragon. Looking at Lin Yuan's flood dragon scales, it was clear. Even a flood dragon had such a terrifying defense, let alone a true dragon whose bloodline was much higher than a flood dragon's. However, there was a reverse scale below the neck of a true dragon, which was the only vital point of a true dragon. It was even weaker than a mortal's flesh and blood. That was why there was a saying in his previous life, touch the reverse scale of a dragon and you will die. This wasn't an act of pretentiousness, but rather a warning. It was also an instinctive defense of one's vitals. When you touched a true dragon's reverse scale, no matter what you were thinking, you could easily kill the true dragon. Unless the true dragon was willing to let you touch its reverse scale, it would be an irreconcilable grudge. Of course, even at the level of a true dragon, some biological habits were still very difficult to change. For example, the pain of molting was something that they had to go through every time they grew up. If they didn't have the strength to break through the shackles of their old skin and scales, they would be suffocated to death. Therefore, the older a dragon was, the stronger it was. Whether it was their strength or their scales, they were constantly growing, and the probability of death was also greatly increased. Coupled with the powerful bloodline of the dragons, their reproductive ability was also lower. That was why the population of this race was dwindling and even completely faded from the world stage. However, even if they molted, the reverse scale wouldn't be shed. There was only one possibility for the reverse scale to fall off, and that was the molting of a true dragon. The true dragon was a race that was full of treasures. Even the reverse scale, after leaving the body, could become an extremely hard magic treasure through special refining methods. It was even harder than ordinary dragon scales. However, this thing was basically left behind by the deceased dragons for their descendants. If a grand cultivator killed a dragon, he would definitely not be able to obtain the reverse scale. This was because if it wasn't voluntary, as the life source of the dragon dissipated, this reverse scale would also collapse on its own. This was all from the memories of the true dragon bloodline. The 3 white reverse scales represented the 3 true dragons that had fallen in this world. As expected of a large race that had escaped from the untainted world. Even if they had fallen to the point where they had to fight for food with the demonic beasts of this world, their foundation was still not to be underestimated. Several balls of dragon breath collided with the 3 reverse scale magic treasures one after another, but the impact was not even as great as the ancestral dragon's magic treasure. It was like a drop of rain falling into a bonfire, instantly evaporating into nothingness. What an evil creature, you actually dared to deceive us. The ancestral dragon's figure swept past Lin Yuan. His eyes were wide open, and the color of his pupils turned from black to gold, just like the eyes of a true dragon. Golden dragon eyes were the standard of a true dragon, but the standard also meant that it was the weakest type. For example, a true dragon that was good at controlling water would usually have blue eyes. A true dragon that was good at condensing ice would have white eyes. A true dragon that was good at poison would have dark green eyes, and a true dragon that was good at controlling wood would have dark green eyes. Only those that didn't have any special abilities would have golden eyes, just like the scales turning into gold. Ordinary people would only praise Lin Yuan's unusual pupils as beautiful. However, in the true dragon race, he was definitely a gifted genius. Because this meant that Lin Yuan was good at controlling water and condensing ice. If he could purify his bloodline to the level of a true dragon in the future, he could even start to study the Tao of water and Tao of ice. By then, his battle prowess would be more than 10 times stronger than those of the same level. Among the true dragons, if one's pupils and scales were golden, then they were considered to be of average talent. Therefore, although this ancestral dragon was a true dragon that was still roaming the world, he would usually use illusions to change the color of his pupils to black. After all, golden eyes were nothing short of a disgrace to a true dragon. But now, he was enraged to the extreme. Naturally, he couldn't care less about concealing his true strength. Naturally, the color of his pupils was revealed. Seeing an ancestral dragon blocking his path, a trace of embarrassment flashed across the ancestral dragon's face. He shouted, "Old thing, you all value this black Jiao so much, but why don't you think about it? When has this black Jiao ever thought of himself as a member of the true dragon race?" Previously, old ancestor Ao Xian even made an exception and invited him to stay in the Dragon God Temple as the 7th Dragon God, but in the end, the black Jiao rejected him without even thinking about it. "What benefits do you all have for our true dragon race if you protect such a trash?" Speaking until here, greed flashed across his eyes. He said in a deep voice, "If you all don't want to be the bad guy, then I will be. Wait until I capture this black Jiao, peel off his skin and break his bones, extract his divine soul, and soak him in dragon's breath day and night. I don't have to worry that he won't hand over his opportunities and secret techniques. At that time, our true dragon race will definitely rise to another level. Not to mention continuing to dominate the endless sea, it won't be a problem to unify the entire Sky Martial continent." Lunatic. Lin Yuan couldn't help but think of this evaluation in his heart. The true dragon race of the 4 seas had dominated the endless sea for so many years. Wasn't the younger generation of the true dragon race being protected too well? This guy was already in the ancestral demon realm, how could he still speak and act so childishly? Extracting his soul and torturing it so that he could obtain the opportunities and secret techniques he possessed? Chapter 848. Were the opportunities and secret techniques on his body good? The answer was yes. After all, they were all good things produced by the system. Even the martial skills and cultivation techniques that he used Guan Zhaoshan's body to cultivate were all top-quality goods that other hosts had plundered from various worlds. Although the Joss flame power was not little, in the system's eyes, to be able to be called second-rate was not an ordinary thing. Most of the cultivation techniques in the Tianwu world were seen by the system. In exchange, it was probably a sneer. It was too lazy to even evaluate them as second-rate. Was there anyone who coveted such good things? There were many who coveted them. Ever since Lin Yuan stood out, regardless of whether it was his unrivaled methods or his cultivation speed that put countless people to shame, he had undoubtedly attracted the attention of countless greedy eyes. However, by chance, Lin Yuan had wrapped himself in the tiger skin of the demon court. Coincidentally, in the ancient times of this world, there was indeed a group of experts from the great desolate world who had formed the demon court. They had left an extremely strong impression on the natives of the Tianwu world. Even though the demon court had been destroyed for countless years, as long as they discovered something related to the demon court, countless almighty people had no choice but to pay attention to it. Most of the troubles that Lin Yuan encountered were actually set up by those almighty people behind the scenes. They wanted to test Lin Yuan's limits and at the same time, force out the trump cards in Lin Yuan's hands one by one. When Lin Yuan was at his wit's end, they would bare their fangs and devour Lin Yuan, who could be called a sumptuous feast. Now that his cultivation was getting higher and higher, there were more and more experts eyeing him. The tiger skin of the demon court was getting thinner and thinner. There were even some existences that the demon court could not suppress who were itching to make a move on Lin Yuan. For example, the people behind Spiritual Master He. After knowing Lin Yuan's goal, they were still unwilling to take away the disciples under Spiritual Master He. Weren't they supporting Spiritual Master He? They wanted to use this evil cultivator's mysterious and unfathomable methods to test Lin Yuan's worth. Therefore, Lin Yuan gave them face, and slapped their faces. He even threatened to kick them out of the game. Although this move was arrogant, it had to be done. Those people were eyeing Lin Yuan covetously for two reasons. First, for his secret. Second, after reaching a certain level, cultivation resources needed to keep up. Even if it was just a Dao initiation realm cultivator, the amount of resources needed for one day's cultivation could bankrupt a third-rate sect. Lin Yuan could have given up on these resources in the past, but not now. He had enough strength, and there was no need for him to support those vermin that he might not even be able to defeat. Although he had the system and could steadily improve without these resources, he still had a large group of people under him. If he didn't think of ways to accumulate resources now, when their strength increased, they would all go hungry. However, Lin Yuan's move was indeed a little too overbearing. Although the Heavenly Gate Guardians with higher cultivation levels couldn't make a move, they couldn't help but secretly think. Now that Lin Yuan had kicked out a Dao Initiation Realm cultivator, when he broke through, would he kick out a Supreme Realm cultivator? If he took another step forward, wouldn't it be the other way around? Wouldn't he reach out and ask for things from them? Ever since the fisherman's son could accurately find him in the endless sea despite knowing nothing about him, Lin Yuan knew that there were probably countless powerful people secretly spying on him. Therefore, when he received the power of 3 million incense sticks, he did not hesitate at all and directly hired a powerful helper to slaughter the endless sea monsters who did not know what was good for them. Firstly, it was to lay the foundation for his next plan. Secondly, it was to intimidate the guardians of the Heaven Gate. Lin Yuan knew that the weight of the demon court was no longer enough to intimidate these greedy people, so he decisively told them that he didn't have the support of the demon court behind him. However, the helper he pulled in clearly proved that his backing was even greater than the demon court. Of course, the gap between the realms was there. Lin Yuan didn't know how many famous Heavenly Gate Guardians the man in the white coat killed in the void, and how many big shots who were lucky enough to survive were scared witless. Most of them even felt that they didn't have to be enemies with Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan only wanted to express that he would accept as many methods as possible within the rules. However, he could flip the table at any time to bully others. If they didn't want him to have an easy time, then no one would have an easy time. After showing off his muscles, although he didn't dare to say that his path would be unobstructed, but for a long time, no one would dare to use such methods to bully others. If they wanted his things, they would have to sit down and gamble. The winner would take all, or the loser would have nothing. Those who should be thinking about Lin Yuan would definitely continue to think about Lin Yuan. It was just that they didn't dare to break the rules in a short period of time, in case Lin Yuan went on a killing spree again. As for when they walked out of the psychological shadow brought by the man in the white coat, it was hard to say if they would still be a match for Lin Yuan. But what if Lin Yuan's opportunity fell into the hands of the natives of the Sky Martial World? Then it would be a big joke. Although these natives came and went, and probably hid many trump cards in private, the real gap between them was not big. If they fought with their lives on the line, they would still be able to fight to the death with other forces of the same level. Although the Dragon Clan of the Four Seas was strong, but if they obtained Lin Yuan's opportunity, it would definitely attract the attention of other forces. Wasn't this Dragon Clan youth afraid that this sweet potato would be scalded? Even if the dragon clan of the Four Seas acted high and mighty in the beginning, they only dared to ask for Lin Yuan's method to purify his blood vessels. At the same time, they coveted Lin Yuan's territory and foundation in the Sky Martial continent. No one dared to ask Lin Yuan to hand over all his secrets. They only dared to eat the things that the dragon clan of the Four Seas could eat. You want everything? Then you have to die. Bastard! Shut up! Zhu Long, who had protected Lin Yuan, was so angry that his expression became distorted. He stared fiercely at the dragon clan youth, wishing that he could tear this thing to pieces to vent his anger. Did he really think that the walls had no ears? Just based on these words, Zhu Long felt that a blood-red danger word had appeared above his head. If it really came to that point, Lin Yuan would definitely want to exterminate the dragon clan of the Four Seas. Today, he might really be able to dig out a part of his secrets. Then, what awaited the dragon clan of the Four Seas would be the encirclement and annihilation of the various forces. The entire clan would be buried with Lin Yuan because of this guy's greed. Blackwater Dragon King, you must be joking. Zhu Long bowed to Lin Yuan and said in a deep voice, "My dragon clan of the Four Seas has not taught properly. I hope that sire will not bicker with a junior. Leave this matter to my divine dragon palace, I will definitely give sire a satisfactory answer." Chapter 849. N. Lin Yuan nodded slightly, agreeing to this matter. He was not a gentleman who was magnanimous. Although he was not on good terms with the dragon clan of the Four Seas, he had never thought of wiping out the dragon clan of the Four Seas. In any case, they would have to pay for their own stupidity and greed. Instead of venting his anger, he might as well take the opportunity to set up a plan and clean up a portion of those who were not beneficial to the overall situation. He would take the opportunity to control the dragon clan of the Four Seas and make these arrogant demonic beasts his subordinates, bringing him real gold and silver. Although the Northern Territory Chamber of Commerce was a huge gold-swallowing beast, the market was always saturated. Now that the income was gradually stabilizing, it was no longer as profitable as it was at the beginning. However, the Endless Sea was a treasure trove. The various resources cultivated here, if brought to the Tianwu continent, would probably be more valuable than the spiritual items in the Hengduan mountain range. After all, although it was dangerous to enter the Hengduan mountain range to collect spiritual items, it was not completely impossible with cultivation and experience. However, the treasures in the Endless Sea, even if one came alive, they might not be able to return alive. Reforming the law, promoting construction, cultivating cultivators and demonic beasts, these simple words meant the consumption of countless resources. Now, it could barely support the consumption of the northern frontier. However, as its territory expanded, it would inevitably gradually lose its power. It could not possibly swallow the entire Shenwu dynasty and end up treating the other places as a burden, and still focus on developing the northern frontier, right? Old thing, you speak as if you are sure to eat me up. The dragon clan youth put his hands behind his back and looked at the ferocious dragon head that was filled with anger. He laughed disdainfully and said in a deep voice, "This young master is the #1 genius of the dragon clan of the Four Seas since ancient times. If I had the same noble bloodline as you, by now, I would have already stepped into the realm above the ancestor demon realm. You old things only know how to make progress despite having a tyrannical bloodline. Do you think that just because people call you Dragon God, you are really the Dragon God? What a joke." The ancestral Gragon narrowed his eyes and said coldly, "I originally thought that you were just jealous of the Black Jiao, which led to the birth of an inner demon. I wanted to see if you could be saved. I didn't expect that you weren't just dissatisfied with the Black Jiao, who was more talented and had more opportunities than you. You must have been dissatisfied with my dragon clan of the Four Seas for a long time, right?" Speaking up to here, it changed the topic and said in a sad tone, "Our Four Sea Dragon clan has a bad reputation in the Endless Sea. Many demonic beasts say that our dragon clan only values bloodline. Those with noble bloodline can do whatever they want, and those with inferior bloodline can only be slaves. This kind of atmosphere is brought up by you guys who have rotten roots, right? Bloodline? If bloodline could explain everything, how could this world belong to the human race? As the ancestral Greygon's words fell, even Lin Yuan couldn't help but be slightly moved. The reason why humans could become the protagonists of heaven and earth was not that they were favored by heaven and earth. It was because they struggled in a harsh environment and constantly worked hard for a better future. They tried to become stronger again and again until they defeated all the different species and became the supreme ruler. Not many people could see through this, and even fewer people were willing to admit it. Those different species who were defeated by humans always liked to attribute all of this to the fact that humans were favored by fate and were the protagonists of heaven and earth. The powerful different species were just whetstones that humans used to sharpen themselves. They resented the unfairness of heaven and earth, but were unwilling to admit that humans had paid a lot of blood and effort in those dark years in exchange for everything that they had today. It had to be said that this kind of guy who only talked about bloodline was really disgusting. A powerful bloodline was indeed enviable, but he couldn't say that his bloodline wasn't noble enough because he couldn't make any progress. Wasn't this a case of cerebral palsy? What kind of bloodline could humans have? Why were there always strong human beings? At this moment, the expression on Lin Yuan's face relaxed slightly. When his gaze fell on the Dragon Clan youth, there was already a hint of killing intent. Connecting it to his previous conjecture and the ancestral Greygon's words, Lin Yuan finally understood why the Dragon Clan youth had pursued him so relentlessly and insisted on killing him at this time even though he hadn't been transformed into an aberrant. Moreover, the Great Old One was still doing his best to cooperate with him and create opportunities for him. This guy was indeed bewitched. But he hadn't been transformed into an aberrant. From the ancestral Greygon's previous words, it could be inferred that the Dragon Clan youth was very jealous of him. Other than Lin Yuan, who knew that he was a cheater, the other cultivators and monsters all felt that Lin Yuan could grow so quickly because he had a great opportunity. Before Lin Yuan appeared, the Dragon Clan youth was the #1 genius of the Four Seas Dragon Clan. After Lin Yuan appeared, the title of #1 genius naturally fell to Lin Yuan. Even if Lin Yuan wasn't from the Four Seas Dragon Clan, who asked him to have the bloodline of the Dragon Clan? Under this sense of disparity, it was normal for the Dragon Clan youth to be dissatisfied with him. In addition, he was a bloodline believer. He believed that Lin Yuan's bloodline was inferior to his, so his aptitude was naturally inferior to his. The reason why he could be where he was today was all because of the opportunity that Lin Yuan had. Thus, malice was born. The strange existence on the side of the Great Old One's side undoubtedly grasped this point and bewitched him, provoking his inner demon. After provoking the Dragon Clan youth's killing intent and greed, the Great Old One didn't aberrate him, but quietly withdrew. That was why when Lin Yuan was having a battle of ideals, the Dragon Clan youth didn't show the slightest discomfort. The methods of these Great Old Ones were indeed strange and vicious. If it wasn't for the unseen sense of danger reminding him, he might have really fallen for it. Who would have thought that the Great Old One's killing move against him wasn't the aberrant ancestral Greygon from the start, but a Dragon Clan member who was plagued by inner demons? After understanding the key point, Lin Yuan's expression became better. Although he was more and more vigilant about the strange methods of the Great Old One, in a sense, as long as he maintained enough vigilance and stayed away from these guys who might give birth to inner demons, at least he wouldn't fall into the situation where he was crazily being chased by the Dragon Clan youth like today. If it wasn't for him revealing his trump card that could flip the table, and expressing that if the Endless Seas demon beasts weren't willing to help, he would directly leave, and didn't really fight with the Dragon Clan youth. Instead, he realized that there was something wrong with the Dragon Clan youth and fled in the direction of the Willowstone Fortress before the other party made a move. Most likely, someone had already seen through his weakness and might want to make a move on him soon. Chapter 850. Old thing, don't talk nonsense. If you want to fight, just do it. You always say that you can't do this or that. If you make a mistake, you're directly thrown into the evil dragon pool and imprisoned. Some people are even imprisoned for life. You treat your people so coldly and ruthlessly, but you still say that it's for the good of the dragon tribe of the four seas. Bullshit. I say, you're all bullshit. If the dragon tribe of the four seas wants to become stronger, we have to plunder resources and opportunities. Only when we're really strong, we don't have to care about the guardians of the heavenly gates. Can't you understand this? If we follow your train of thought, it won't take long for the endless sea to become like the Hengduan mountain range. We'll become animals reared by the guardians of the heavenly gates. When that time comes, they can kill and slaughter us as they wish. What can you do? It's useless for you to rope in the black jiao. You can't get the things on the black jiao. At this time, what you should do is to rob and interrogate. As long as we can get the black jiao's opportunity, the dragon tribe of the four seas will be the most powerful existence in the world in less than 100 years. Don't you know how to cherish such a good opportunity in front of you? Ha 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 ha. No, it's not that you don't know how to cherish it. It's not that you don't know how to do it. You just want to keep your hypocritical face. Since that's the case, I'll be the bad guy. I'll take the black jiao's opportunity. Why do you make it seem like I'm betraying the dragon tribe of the four seas? The dragon tribe youth's face was full of arrogance. His skin and flesh quickly broke open, revealing a huge body that was not inferior to the ancestral Greygons. The two huge creatures directly faced each other in the air. At the same time, he roared angrily, "You're the ones who are wrong. Not me." The ancestral Greygon was silent. He kept opening his mouth, but it was as if someone was strangling his throat. He could not say a word and could only look at the dragon tribe youth in silence. The dragon tribe of the four seas was indeed very powerful. In addition to their low reproduction rate, every demonic beast with the dragon tribe's bloodline was protected like a plant in a greenhouse. They only knew how to absorb nutrients in a comfortable environment, but once in the outside world, they would probably die very quickly. Yes, that's right, Lin Yuan does have a great opportunity on him, but who can guarantee that Lin Yuan will hand it over? Even if Lin Yuan handed over a part of it, who could guarantee that it was complete and could be completed quickly? Unless Lin Yuan was willing to impart all of this to the dragon tribe of the four seas, all of this would bring about the destruction of the entire tribe. After obtaining Lin Yuan's fortuitous encounter, would the dragon race of the four seas need 100 years to grow before they could become the most powerful race in the world? Not necessarily. This period of time could be longer, or it could be shorter. However, what was certain was that no matter if it was the other demonic beasts in the endless sea or the human practitioners among the guardians of the Heaven's Gate, no one would give them the time and opportunity to grow. If the dragon clan of the four seas did not hand over the things they had obtained, their clan would be exterminated overnight. However, if they had handed over these things, then why did they have to interrogate Lin Yuan in the first place? If they befriended Lin Yuan at this time and waited for Lin Yuan to grow and show some goodwill to the dragon race of the four seas, it would be a great opportunity for the entire dragon race of the four seas. Lin Yuan and the dragon race of the four seas did have some conflicts, but at the end of the day, Lin Yuan was still a demonic beast. Once he reached the true peak, he would definitely have to deal with the true experts among the human practitioners. At that time, if both sides did not get along well, a great war would break out. Among the demonic beasts, the only ones qualified to participate in this war would be the dragon race of the four seas. If Lin Yuan wanted to support the forces under his command, could he expect the northern frontier to slowly grow? Lin Yuan was not that foolish, and neither was the dragon race of the four seas. Only this fool in front of him stubbornly believed in his own theory. Sigh. The ancestral Greygon sighed softly and said with pity, "You have fallen to this state today because us seniors have spoiled you too much. Today, I will personally end you to prevent you from making more mistakes and bringing disaster to the entire dragon race of the four seas. Let's fight." Lin Yuan had originally thought that the following battle would be a scene of various techniques and magic treasures flying around, but in reality, the two enormous dragons were like the most primitive of beasts. Their bodies were entwined together, their dragon heads constantly moving as they tore at each other's flesh. Even their dragon claws were clawing and slapping as they constantly attacked each other. There was nothing fancy about the battle between the two ancestral Gragon dragons. Every time they attacked, a spray of golden blood mixed with minced flesh would erupt. As a spectator, Lin Yuan had 3 reverse scales to protect him, so he was not afraid of being torn apart by the shockwaves of the battle. However, as he watched, the light in Lin Yuan's eyes gradually dimmed as he fell into a mysterious state. What was the Great Tao? The Great Tao was the simplest. The humans and monsters that Lin Yuan had seen before all liked to use some fancy techniques to fight, but now, these 2 creatures that could be said to be the strongest among all the creatures that Lin Yuan had seen before, with the exception of the white-robed man, were still using their claws and teeth to tear at each other. It was filled with a primitive feeling, but upon closer inspection, he felt that their movements seemed to contain countless truths, making it difficult for him to extricate himself from them. The skills that the system had given Lin Yuan were actually of this style. Apart from the origin powers of water and ice, most of the techniques allowed Lin Yuan to borrow the strength of his body to fight. Lin Yuan had more than once believed that these were merely crude and superficial techniques, and that true cultivators and monsters should be able to summon the wind and summon the rain, using various techniques to fight. But in reality, was this really the case? As mentioned before, the spiritual energy between heaven and earth would suddenly be produced on its own, but it was extremely limited. Every cultivator or monster that swallowed the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to cultivate would greatly consume the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Once a cultivator died, the spiritual energy would not return to heaven and earth, but would dissipate along with it. Therefore, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth became less and less, the inheritances of cultivators were cut off, the monsters continued to degenerate, and rare treasures no longer appeared. This became a period of Dharma decline recorded in the history of cultivation. Perhaps there were other reasons, but Lin Yuan's previous life was truly a period of Dharma decline. Most of the cultivators were liars. Even if there were true cultivators, they could only cultivate to the level of ancient cultivators. There was no solution to this situation. Only during the period of Dharma decline, when the spiritual energy produced by heaven and earth was restored to a certain extent, would monsters and cultivators naturally be born and enter the next cultivation era's reincarnation. Those powerful people would either leave a world of Dharma decline, or turn into dust during this period of Dharma decline. At this time, no matter if it was a human or a beast, the method of self-protection was to fight with their bodies. This was the inheritance engraved in their blood. How could a self-preservation method engraved in his bloodline be weak? However, in comparison, the divine Tao was much more dangerous. A powerful god meant that they had to manage a powerful divine kingdom. They had to be able to suppress the tyrannical gods in their own divine systems. They also had to face challenges from other divine systems' god kings. They also had to manage their faith and ensure that their believers would not switch to the embrace of other gods. They also had to ensure that their believers would not perish. Everything required a lot of time and energy. The slightest carelessness could lead to the destruction of one's soul. Compared to the immortal Tao, which most of the time only required one to cultivate in silence, it was countless times more difficult. Although this set of life source magical abilities could only be inherited from the bloodline, the roaming dragon's 9 transformations was not a simple cultivation method. It included a series of methods to temper or use the corporeal body. For example, circulating one's chi and blood, fist techniques, lightness techniques, absorbing the essence of various spiritual objects to temper the corporeal body, and so on. As long as Lin Yuan could find some alchemy, artifact refining, array Tao, and so on, he could almost deduce a complete cultivation system. Lin Yuan, who originally suffered from not being able to pass on the scripture of all living beings, did not have to worry about not being able to explain it to the Red Dust Taoist, because the immortal Tao method was not inferior to the soul sculpting secret art. From a personal point of view, Lin Yuan could completely say that he had gained a lot from this trip. It could be considered a blessing in disguise. But the question was the scheme of the old rulers really so simple? It was not that Lin Yuan was overthinking it, but according to the system's introduction, the old rulers were the heroes and wise men of their time. They were existences that could break free from the river of time. There was no easy way to find a good person. The other party could provoke the heart's demons to block the detection function attached to the battle of ideas, which seemed to give the Dragon Clan youth a great chance to kill him. This was indeed a good point. But everything had to be calculated before victory. This was the basic quality of a wise man. Could it be that the old rulers did not calculate that the other powerhouses in the Willow Stone Fortress would not sit idly by? As long as he had the means to hold on until reinforcements arrived, he would be able to obtain a chance of survival. If they did not calculate to this point, then it meant that the so-called wise men among them were nothing more than this. If they calculated, then what was the deeper meaning behind this move? What would they do next? Even if Lin Yuan continued to suppress them with the battle of ideals, the actual effect would not be great. Even if the monsters of the Endless Sea could suppress the aberrations they had transformed into, as the battle progressed, these great old ones, who were far more terrifying than the aberrations, could distort the vanguard troops of the Endless Sea into aberrations in the blink of an eye, which was equivalent to establishing an invincible position. However, the sea monsters of the Endless Sea had multiplied for so many years. How could they not have any trump cards? Whoever had the upper hand would definitely be at a disadvantage. Just like the aberration ancestral dragon from before, it was almost captured when the great old ones appeared. In the end, it was only recently completely transformed into an aberration. Those tyrannical sea monsters could also resist the distorting power with their own willpower. Although the result would not change, with Lin Yuan as a variable, the longer they delayed, the easier it would be for accidents to happen. As you all know, we are indeed very strong. However, compared to the united demonic beasts of the Endless Sea, we are ridiculously weak. Once the Black Flood Dragon discovers our weakness, or completely suppresses us through a battle of ideologies, it will only be a matter of time before we are sealed back into the river of time. If it wasn't for that idiot Ji Sui, it wouldn't be so difficult for us to occupy the Endless Sea. However, things have already reached this stage. There is no point in continuing to complain and fight among ourselves. Ancient Yi clenched his right fist and said in a deep voice, "Fortunately, we still have a chance of survival. Now that the Endless Sea has serious internal conflicts, we should take advantage of this time to design their high-end combat power one by one and reduce the number of opponents we have to face when the final battle breaks out. This is a big strategy. I need all of you to fully cooperate with me. If anyone doesn't cooperate, I don't mind personally tearing them apart." At the same time, Lin Yuan, who was under the Willow Stone Fortress, slowly raised his head and muttered, "So this is their plan. They are indeed the top existences of their generation. With such great courage, I might not dare to make such a bet." He had thought it through. The great old one seemed to have the upper hand in the war with the sea monsters of the Endless Sea, and it was only a matter of time before they devoured the Endless Sea. However, in reality, they were just pushing ducks onto a perch. They could have easily devoured the entire Endless Sea and would not even have caused the Heavenly Gate guards to be on guard against them. Perhaps they could really destroy the current world and strangle the new era in its cradle. Originally, the aberrations had the upper hand in the war. Otherwise, the sea monsters of the Endless Sea would not have been forced to retreat. Chapter 853. The outcome of the battle at the front had also been revealed. The mutated ancestral dragon was indeed powerful. It was originally standing at the peak of the ancestral demon realm. After the mutation, its physical strength became even more powerful. However, a tiger couldn't defeat a pack of wolves and was still torn into pieces by the ancestral demon of the Endless Sea. On the side of the Endless Sea, 3 ancestral demon realm monsters paid the price. Senior. Lin Yuan's figure flashed and stopped a relatively powerful ancestral demon. He said in a deep voice, "I've figured out something. I need to gather all the ancestral demon realm seniors for a meeting. Please help me inform the seniors." As soon as his voice fell, Lin Yuan's dragon tail rolled and handed a black cloth bag to the other party. The black cloth bag was a product of the Northern Frontiers Ministry of Works. It was similar to a sumeru ring, but the storage space was not that large. It was only about 10 cubic meters. This was the product of the Northern Frontiers Ministry of Works' countless master-level craftsmen, the precious materials produced by the Hengduan Mountains and the 7 dynasties, and the wonderful ideas in Lin Yuan's mind. Although it was far from Lin Yuan's initial idea, this black cloth bag was still an extremely rare treasure. No matter which world it was, time and space were always the highest level of power. Situations where storage-type artifacts were everywhere would never happen in the real world. According to the current production capacity of the Northern Frontier, at most 3 black cloth bags of this size were produced in a year. Each of them was an existence that could make transcendent realm cultivators fight for. The black cloth bag also contained a lot of spiritual items. Whether it was the effect or the age, they were all the best. This was something prepared after the launch of the Trade City plan. There were only 3 of them in total. They were originally intended to be given to some heavyweight great demons as a meeting gift to see if they could be pulled onto their chariot. He didn't expect it to be used here. When the demon ancestors saw Lin Yuan hand over a black cloth bag, he was slightly stunned at first, but he still accepted it. After scanning it with his mind, an uncontrollable joy appeared on his face as he said, "Dragon King, you are too polite. You are a distinguished guest of the Endless Sea. If you need anything, just say the word. Why are you being so polite?" That being said, the demon ancestor had no intention of returning the black pouch to Lin Yuan. In other words, it was fine to return those fays to Lin Yuan, but this black pouch was too fragrant. A storage-type artifact. This was something that not even the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas had. As he watched the other party leave, the smile in Lin Yuan's eyes suddenly disappeared, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Honored guests of the Endless Sea. This common sense couldn't be hidden because this was the scope of the world will's authority. As long as their cultivation reached a certain level, they would naturally receive a hint. Although the ancient creatures that fled here had passed down countless cultivation methods and cultivated cultivators to guard the gate of heaven, just by looking at the god-sculpting sect in the past, it was clear that those ancient creatures were hiding something. Their cultivation had reached the ancestor monster realm and supremacy realm, but in fact, they had already reached the peak. If they wanted to take a step further and become a god, they had no way to do so. They could only feel the stones and cross the river, feeling their way bit by bit. So far, not a single one of them had succeeded. Otherwise, the white-robed man's avatar wouldn't have been able to slaughter so many ancestor monster realm cultivators, leaving them without any strength to fight back. This was not only directed at the god-sculpting sect, but also at the cultivation sects of ancient times. It should be the doing of the ancient creatures. They didn't want this world to become complete, because a complete world could accept the arrival of a sage. Only an incomplete world could accommodate them, and they didn't need to worry about Hung Jun and his sages personally coming to kill them. While the group of ancestor monster realm experts were having a fierce psychological struggle, Lin Yuan's mind had already flown to the sky, and he began to think about his own matters. This scene was within his expectations. He had only called this meeting because he had seen through the schemes of the old rulers. However, none of the monster beasts of the endless sea treated him as one of their own. With his prestige and strength, it was impossible for these monster beasts to restrain their own clansmen and let go of their prejudices. They needed to think, discuss, and consider how to deal with this matter themselves.